just a star-studded event.
It's a very eclectic race.
So many different types of racers.
It's going to be wild to watch.
You have so many cars in a small area. The first thing you have to do is get through trouble-free. It's virtually impossible to ever get a clean lap.
Instead of trying to win the race, you try not to lose it.
You finish first, you first have to finish.
The prestige of this race is something that everybody wants to be a part of.
The competition level is unbelievable, off the charts. It's as good as it's ever been.
We're here to win this race.
It's the Rolex 24.
Few tests in motorsport are more comprehensive than this. It is so tough. The Rolex 24 at Daytona. It's the 45th occasion here in Central Florida at the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway, and we have had quite a remarkable start to this event. A star-studded lineup, an incredible field, and if you were with us, Speed on Fox, you'll know what we were talking about, the drama involving this car. Alex Gurney, the Gainsco, Bob Stallings Racing, Pontiac Riley. Take a look at this, because coming onto the straight, the 42 for Team Salem, the hood goes up, driver completely blinded. Michael Oriema gets in the way. Alex Gurney had nowhere to go. So many other Daytona prototypes are able to skip through, but sadly, Alex Gurney did not. That caused damage to the front of the car, and it has just ruined their chances of any success. Now, it's not only the Gainsco Bob Stallings car in trouble. The 23 Ruby Tuesday Porsche has also had a string of problems. Mike Johnson is on the spot.
Yeah, well, the 23 car's been running great all day. They actually went further than most teams on fuel, but they knew they had an alternator problem in the beginning. They took this opportunity to make the change. Now, what's interesting down here is we are at pit out. We are at the very, very far end from the garages. So the Grand Am officials give each team only 5 minutes to make modifications or repairs to the car. If these guys can't get this job done in 5 minutes, they're blocking other cars coming in. The team's going to have to push the car all the way down to the far side of the garages to finish the job. So right now they're working as hard and fast as they can. The Grand Am officials standing here kind of watching an eye on things, and you know, right now they just hope they can get this done on time.
Well, if they can get that alternator changed in 5 minutes, I mean, that would be a huge effort on their part. That is not easy to get to on that automobile. It's really down in the engine pretty far.
It's a super lineup with Patrick Long, Romain Dumas, and of course the reigning Daytona prototype champion, German Jörg Bergmeister, but they do not have a chance to compete now with that trouble. You can't afford to drop any time, because there are a handful of teams who just have the perfect run, the clear run, the clean run in this Rolex 24 at Daytona. You have to stay on the track. You can't afford to lose laps. And here's Mark Goossens in the lead now. Hasn't always been that way. He's been hunting and chasing the SunTrust Pontiac Riley of Max Angelelli. However, when we were making the switch from Fox to Speed, he pitted. In terms of Angelelli, Goossens inherited the lead. And AJ Armendinger for Michael Shank Racing sits in second. David Donohue remains third. And Wayne Taylor, after taking over from Angelelli, he is in fourth place. Fresh from the car, Max the Axe is with Calvin.
Max, great opening stint there. The car looks to be strong, but why the decision to come out after one stint?
Because I don't want to be tired right away. Last year I double stint, I was a little bit tired. So I want to just save myself. I guess Jan is going to do the same. I don't know about Wayne and Jeff, but we will do that.
How important is it? I know there's a lot of discussion made between running 3 drivers in a car where everyone gets a bit more seat time and having 4 drivers in a car. How tough is this race? Do you need that 4th guy here?
I think it's better to have 4 guys, then you can go overnight easy and be fresh in the morning. Tomorrow morning is when it counts.
Was the pace what you expected in the early going?
More or less, yes. Last year was harder, actually.
All right, mate, best of luck.
Thank you.
You know, with these cars running out of fuel at just over an hour, what happens if you have 3 drivers is the most sleep you could possibly get if you went to sleep instantly would be a couple hours. And of course, that doesn't give you much rest. Plus, you can't get to sleep around here with all this noise and whatnot. Going with 4 gives you that little bit of cushion that you might need.
Noise, Dawes? Beautiful sound, you mean?
Yeah, it's a gorgeous sound unless you're trying to sleep.
Then it is a noise, isn't it? Well, you've heard from Mike Johnson and Calvin Fish. We also have Brian Till and Chris Neville on pit road. Lee Diffie and Dorsey Schrader with you here. And, of course, always Bob Varsha and David Hobbs in the team as well. And those boys will be here in the booth real soon. Here's Wally Dallenbach for Robinson Racing. The Ranch 74 Ranch Resort car is back. These guys had a solid run last year, and they're back to do it again with the same driver lineup. Wally's brother Paul is in the car, and of course George Robinson. It's an easily recognizable car.
Win, lose, or draw, there's not a team out there that has any more fun than these group of guys. These are really, truly a lot of good friends with each other. They get together once a year usually and do this, and they just are here for one thing, to have a good old time.
Of course, the 4th driver in this car is Champ Car World Series sensation Catherine Legg. She's enjoying her first run at the Rolex 24, and the first run with a car with a roof over her head. So we'll follow her progress a little later in the race. Dorsey, I'd have to say, if you put a blanket over the top of things, this has been, although there's been maybe a handful of minor incidents, this has been a pretty error-free run so far, with 36 laps into the race and not a single caution.
And that is quite unbelievable when you think about it. We have had a couple incidents, never had a caution flag out yet. This car is in some sort of difficulty.
This is the Vision Racing car, the 00. This is the All Indy Racing League driver lineup in here, as they get it, try and get it to their respective pit box.
Well, they might have run it out of fuel and it didn't make it all the way. I don't know that yet.
Quite the driver lineup: Ed Carpenter, Thomas Schechter, Stefan Gregoire, Anthony Foyt, and Tony George. Yes, that is Tony George from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Very excited about fielding a car in the Rolex 24. However, they have struck their first problems in this Porsche-powered Crawford.
Yeah, they're taking the hood off now, so this is not a good stop at all.
Anything obvious down there, Cal?
There isn't. I just looked at what the mechanic said. What's the issue? He just said no power and put the cut neck sign to his neck. So some kind of issue here as he crawled down the pit lane. Pretty fortunate that if it did cut out of power, that he actually got it back to pit lane without being stranded out there on the course. Thomas Schechter behind the wheel right now. Obviously one of the fastest guys on the planet. He knows how to put his foot down, but right now when he's putting the foot down, there is no power from this Porsche.
Speaking about putting the foot down, AJ Allmendinger, he is hot at the moment. He is running hard. He's just a second behind race leader Mark Goosens and wants this race lead. He's running the number 6 Mike Shank Racing, Lexus Riley, and there he is. There's the distance, first to second. Goosens has a challenge on his hands.
You could tell by the method that he made that pass going into the bus stop that he has got the hammer down. That was an aggressive 10-10 maneuver getting through that, passing through there. That's putting it right on the line.
Team owners, team managers, crew chiefs, they will tell the drivers all the same thing. Get into a good rhythm and don't take any risks you don't have to. Well, AJ was firm about that one, wasn't he?
He was, and that's a risk that he did take, because had not Wally Dallenbach seen him there and had cut down on him, well, there's the wreck you get.
He's excited. He's got a massive season coming up in the NASCAR Nextel Cup. He's also doing, I want to say, as many as 10 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series races. And young AJ just got married last Friday. His wife Lynn is here. She's very excited about the racing year ahead as well, and pretty happy to be AJ's new wife.
See all the headlight flashing there. They want to make sure that the car being passed knows that, hey, I'm up here, don't run up into me.
Calvin.
Well, on that first round of pit stops, Lee, everything was pretty much routine. Other than the 10 car, we've already documented that Max Angeli jumped out and they made a rear wicker change, adding more rear downforce to the number 10 Suntrust machine. But for the 01 and also the number 6 machine of AJ Allmendinger, who's currently running second, no changes. But interesting to note, Lexus and Pontiac power plants seem to be on about the same mileage. Now, on this first stint, they'll typically be very conservative until they get a true read under race day conditions. They certainly don't want to run out and stretch it a lap or two unnecessarily. So what will happen now is all the technicians will look at the data, see how much fuel got put in the car, and then maybe able to stretch it a lap or two further on this next start.
Take a look at this, take a look at this. AJ Allmendinger right up on the fence as he sweeps around the Porsche Fab car, the VC Racing entry, and he is hot for the lead of this race, and he's got it. A big over and under move on Mark Goossens, and Allmendinger is the race leader.
And that was exactly what I was talking about. I knew back in that horseshoe back there that he was serious. He wants this lead, and he's not going to take anybody's second guess here. He's going to go for it. Now watch, he's going to try to extend that lead. But did you see him slide the car too? He's really using a lot of car up early on in this stint. You can wear the tires out before the fuel's over.
Well, Goossens not going to let him run away in the Lowe's Riley Matthews Pontiac. Mark is extremely experienced, has done so much racing in various categories, and he is vying for the lead of this motor race. We'll be back.
Speed's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Rolex, a crown for every achievement. By Ruby Tuesday, simple, fresh American dining from start to finish. And by Lexus and their pursuit of perfection.
Amazingly, we have gone 41 laps of the 2007 Rolex 24 at Daytona, caution-free. And this young American driver, AJ Allmendinger, is leading the way. Calvin.
Here with Mike Shank. Mike, you had a great end to the 06 season, winning the finale at Salt Lake City, and right now you're leading with the sister car, the number 6. AJ doing a great job, but what is the state with the car right now?
The car's obviously handling and working pretty well. We have a small problem here that we're going to have to address. It's going to put us down for a few minutes. We're going to get it fixed, and when we can, we'll be out and run strong. Obviously, he can get to the front.
You said last year you finished second, and basically Ganassi beat you in the pits by being better prepared when they did have a problem. Are you ready?
Oh, we're ready for him this time. We're ready. We're out. We'll be back in the garage. It'll be a little show back there. It worked out pretty good because I was Waldo in the 60 cars working a nice steady pace. Put the 6 car out front to see what it can do, and that worked out pretty good so far. We're just going to have a little glitch here we're going to take care of here shortly.
How long is the fix going to take, Mike?
I don't know. I'm hoping 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, there's the news. Big news on the leader, Lee.
Cal, did he tell you off camera what the problem was?
Yeah, he did, but he wanted to kind of keep that under his hat right now. I mean, these teams are listening to our coverage. He doesn't want to give the game away too quickly.
All right, so we'll have to watch and listen. And
well, if it's a 15 to 20 minute fix, it's not a small problem then, is it? I mean, 15 to 20 minutes is about what that alternator should have taken on the 23, and that's not done yet.
You know what? You can see the frustration there on Mike Shank's face because Paul Tracy, who is one of the 4 drivers in this car, took the Mike Shank car to the lead this time last year, and then they had problems. So more frustration for the Ohio-based team as we go on board the 01 Scott Pruett. This car experienced troubles a year ago when looking so strong. But what a lineup. This is the car that Juan Pablo Montoya is in, and also hot young Mexican driver Salvador Duran. Scott Pruett has been around a lot longer than those 2 guys. So what keeps him motivated?
I love going racing. I still love going racing. I guess it's a hard thing because I did my first race when I was 8 years old, which is some years ago in a go-kart. Longer ago than I'll admit. But even still, I get out here and even when I rolled in yesterday, getting in the car the first time, you just get that excitement. I mean, that's what keeps me motivated. That much keeps me training every day and doing all the things that I do, especially with all these young kids who want to beat up on me. I can't let that happen.
He works incredibly hard at his physical fitness regime, and that's why he is able to run the pace that these guys do, set the pace, and it was only a couple of years ago that he was Rolex Series champion. He would like to do that again in 2007. I mean, he was racing when you were racing, and you could teach him how to fish in the Keys.
He was my teammate, as a matter of fact. He was the one responsible for getting me the ride at Jack Roush back in 1988. He was leaving to go on the champ car at the time, and I was picked as his replacement after the infamous Gong show that Jack Roush has.
Well, Scott's enormously accomplished. 3 times a Trans Am champion, Rolex Series champion. He's done NASCAR, Nextel Cup racing, kart, the lot. So too is this man, Thomas Enger. A week ago, he was down under in New Zealand doing the A1 Grand Prix Series, representing his country, the Czech Republic. And it's been a whirlwind journey up here, and it's been a bit of a whirlwind journey for him in this field because he started 28th right at the back of the prototype field, and he now runs in a very strong 10th position for Samax Racing. This is a Pontiac-powered Riley. He's coming up on a lapped car. That is Shane Lewis for Southern Motorsports. But Enger has just cut a path through this field, and he's done it very smoothly. No damage on that Samax car, so he's looking good. Now, we mentioned, again, another one of the feature drivers in this field experiencing the Rolex 24 for the first time, and she is with Brian.
Well, it is a star-studded lineup, Lee, as we've talked about race winners, professional race winners, and certainly one of those, Catherine Legg, you won in the Toyota Atlantic Championship. Now in the Champ Car Series, it's great to see you here. Tell me what has been the biggest adjustment with these cars from what you're used to?
Oh my goodness, there is so much. I'm just happy to be here, to be honest. You know, it's one of those races you just want to tick off your list, but geez, it's big, it's heavy, it's slow, everything, you know, you have time to sort everything out, and the biggest thing for me, I think, is the heat inside one of these cars.
And the fact that it doesn't have a roof on it. You said you're just happy to be here, and I think all the race fans out there are happy that you're here, because if they watched the Road America Champ Car race last year, there was a lot of concern that you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm so lucky to have walked away from that one. It's just a testament to how strong those cars are and how great our safety crew and everybody is.
Well, it's great to see you here, and hopefully you'll be just as competitive as you've been in your open wheel career, and hopefully we'll see you back sometime in the Rolex Sports Car Series.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Catherine's car, the 74 Ranch Resort car. Here it is with Wally Dallin back behind the wheel. Wally currently runs 17th in class, a class winner here at the Rolex 24.
With me, as a matter of fact.
This is the 20. This is the Jackson Hewitt Subway car, the Pontiac Crawford of Andy Wallace, Butch Leitzinger, and Tony Stewart. It is in the garage early. This does not look good.
Now, once you go all the way back there, there's something seriously wrong. We talked about, we heard on the pit lane, you can only sit out there 5 minutes working on something. There's Andy Wallace. You look at him. This is going to be a major fix of some sort. Our boys will catch up with it soon enough.
When can they catch a break in this race? They were running strong. They were up there around the top 10 mark. But now this is going to hurt time-wise. They've got it in the garage so the full crew can work on the car. There's no restrictions in terms of personnel. They've got everything there to fix whatever it is, and we will do our best to find out as quickly as we can.
Nonetheless, a huge disappointment with only 45 laps of a 24-hour race down.
Well, right now they just had Andy fire the engine back up. When they went back to the garage, the crew thought it may have been a broken header. It's obviously running rough. They've got the ECU being monitored right now to try and determine if it's dropped a cylinder or not. So this is not good news. We keep talking about the fact with the deep field here this year, you can't afford to be back in this garage area for very long. When Ganassi had their problem last year, they were lucky. It happened under yellow. So suddenly, 10, 12 minutes, there was only 3 laps. You lose 10, 12 minutes under green here, 5, 6, 7 laps. That's a big handicap.
Now, Calvin, I can hear your workout regimen is doing well.
Hey, I didn't see you out there this morning either, man.
This is the battle for second. It's David Donohue versus Mark Goosens. It's a Porsche Riley up against a Pontiac-powered Riley. And one of the things that Calvin mentioned in his report there, Dorsey, was about the ECU, and they'd take a look at that. And that's one of the changes in the Rolex Sports Car Series in 2007, that the Grand American Road Racing Association has implemented a control ECU. Do you want to expand on that?
Of course, the ECU is an electronic control unit, and what it does is it dictates the performance of the car. All of the different sensors for the engine mapping, as far as the timing of the engine, the ignition timing, the fuel injection, so forth, is run through this ECU. One of the other things that it does, or could do, would provide traction control. These cars used to have traction control. They wouldn't allow to spin the wheel. They've taken that away. Now every team gets an ECU provided by the Grand Am Association, and those are really tightly parametered electronic control units. So no more throttle control. The drivers are going to have to do that on their own. Tonight it'll be a big problem. In the International Horseshoe, where it's really slippery, and the cold weather that we'll have tonight, it's going to be a very slippery racetrack.
Add to that the possibility of rain.
And rain, there's the other factor, and we're looking at 80%.
So no traction control on these cars this year, and that's something that Grand Am will monitor very closely. It's been a strong run for the 58 Red Bull Brumos Porsche. Look at this, he's all over Goossens. David Donohue is on a roll. His late father won this event, and David would dearly love to replicate that. He stands a very good chance. What a lineup it is in the 58 with his regular buddy Darren Law. We've got Scott Sharp and Indy 500 winner Buddy Rice. That's the foursome in this Red Bull car. What a lineup, and so far, so good in this Porsche-powered Riley. We're into a nice, smooth rhythm. No major dramas so far, and we're 46 laps in to the Rolex 24. Butch Leitzinger standing by.
To Daytona, the number 20 machine driven by Andy Wallace remains in the paddock area. The crew are feverishly working out what is wrong with this Pontiac power plant. The engine just went flat. Andy said it had no power. They got it refired, but it does not sound right. They're just changing all of the electrical ancillaries here that they can without doing anything major and digging really deep into the engine compartment, which takes an awfully long time. They are just scratching their heads right now trying to get more power back into this Pontiac, Lee.
That is a dreadful shame, and look at that. Butch Leitzinger, for regular viewers of Speed, you know, we all know Butch and Andy so well. They feature both in the Rolex Sports Car Series and American Le Mans Series, and will again do this year. And we wish them well. Hopefully that problem can be rectified as soon as possible. For those of you who have just joined us, hi everyone, welcome. Lee Diffie, Dorsey Schrader, David Hobbs, Bob Varsha, we're all with you here. Calvin Fish, Brian Till, Chris Neville, and Mike Johnson. We're thrilled to have your company on this incredible day. The drivers from the various categories in motorsport around the world, the best of the best, are here in Central Florida to fight it out for honors in the Rolex 24. AJ Allmendinger from Champ Car to NASCAR Nextel Cup. He leads the way for Mike Shank Racing. Mark Goossens, center of your screen as we ride with David Donohue. That's 1, 2, and 3. Scott Pruett in the Telmex. Chip Ganassi, Lexus Riley sits fourth, and Bill Auberlen for the Siegel Sport BMW crew. The express luggage car is in 5th place outright after starting well down the order. After some qualifying hiccups, Auberlen started 21st and is 5th. What a remarkable run early on in this race. Scott Dixon, IndyCar star, former champion, he's 6th. Patrick Carpentier is 7th. Max Pappas for Krone Racing is 8th. Thomas Enger has come from the back of the prototype field to be 9th. And as Waldo Negri Jr. for Mike Shank Racing is in the top 10 after that car was heavily crashed earlier in the weekend. First of all by Oz, and then a minor off from reigning IRL champion Sam Hornish Jr. As we go to the 11, Sitco Samax car. What a lineup in this car, and it is fast too. It's shown some good speed this weekend. Patrick Carpentier on board at the moment, but the driver lineup in this car, Milka Duno's with him, Darren Manning is with him, who incidentally is returning to IRL this year, and Ryan Dial, who will be competing in the Champ Car World Series. So, for very capable drivers.
Of course, that's Mad Max Pappas right behind him in the Krone Racing number 75. He's going to be teamed with J.J. Lato and Colin Brown. That's a potent car.
Yeah. And Max and Colin will run this car for the entire year. Colin Brown, who was just a standout performer in the Rolex Sports Car Series in 2006. His teammate then, Jörg Bergmeister, who's now switched to Ruby Tuesday's Championship Racing, won the title. And Colin may very well have been able to stand right alongside him if it weren't for those 3 races he missed.
As you see him come up on the banking, you see how the back of the car starting to twitch around? There's the lack of traction control I was talking about. That's one of the slipperier corners. As you re-enter the banking, it's very flat down there. You're in second gear, you're accelerating hard, and both of those cars started fishtailing because the rear wheels are spinning.
Pappas goes side by side with RVO Motorsports' Jack Baldwin and gets that job done. Jack is down in 21st position at the moment on board that Pontiac-powered Riley. Well, it really was a landmark year last year for Krone Racing. 3 wins in total for Jörg Bergmeister, and that propelled him to the Daytona Prototype Drivers' Championship at the Glen, right here at Daytona, where he shared the win with Colin Brown. They were a potent combination, and keep in mind at that stage, Brown was only 17 years of age. Max is getting a little impatient here, trying to force his way through some of the GT traffic, but sensibly. We haven't seen any silly mistakes so far today, Dawes.
I am quite impressed with the drivers so far. I mean, the wrecks that we did were unavoidable ones for the most part. You know, certainly the one with Alex Gurney, there was nothing in the world could have been done about that. That hood came up and caused that whole thing. Everybody must have really had a good talking to.
Well, for Colin Brown, what a weekend for him. Not only is he in a very strong car, capable of winning this race, not only is he with Mad Max Pappas, he's also with another brilliant endurance sports car driver.
Indeed, Lee. 2-time Le Mans winner JJ Leto makes his Grand Am debut, and first time here at Daytona. What's it been like for you, JJ?
Well, it seems to be much busier here than in Le Mans. Pretty good racing, though. Very, very close racing all the time, and you know, the Daytona prototypes, they're so equal cars, so it's just it's up to drivers very, very much here.
There's no traction control on these cars. You haven't driven one before, so you haven't had to adjust. But with the tires and over the course of a full stint before you run out of fuel, like JJ, how much do you have to manage those tires to have some tire left at the end?
Well, it's not really a problem. They last for one stint, no problems at all. But it would be nice to double stint them. That's impossible. And the traction control, if we would have 200 horsepower more, you know, then it would be a little bit more difficult.
We're going to see you back here anymore this year in the series?
No idea.
Well, we'd love to see you back, mate. You're a waste back there in Finland ice fishing. You had a year off last year.
Yeah, fishing is getting kind of boring, you know, so it would be nice to get back.
All right, mate. Cheers.
Thanks.
Nice to have him as part of the Rolex Sports Car Series, isn't it? Here's a very famous number here at Daytona International Speedway, the 59, Brumos. And of course, that is synonymous with Hurley Haywood. He and JC France inside this car once again. And they're teamed with Roberto Moreno and João Barbosa. The battle is going on between the 59 and the 60. This is Oswaldo Negri Jr. behind the wheel of this car. This is the car that Sam Hornish Jr. and Elio Castroneves are in, of course, along with regular team driver Mark Patterson. But let's take a look at a part of the track that was not very kind to Oswaldo earlier this weekend, right there in turn 1.
And there was water there. You see, he gets in the water. He's not the only one. His 10's going out. Loses it. Heavy contact with the guardrail. And you can see from this picture, destroyed the front end. They did a lot of work to get this car back on the track.
Doing a good job. He started 22nd, and the 60 is now in 10th position. Oswaldo has shown remarkable speed. He and Mark Patterson shared a victory last year, which was an incredible moment for both those guys and the team. But here comes the 59. Hurley Haywood, a 5 times Rolex 24 winner, is hunting him down. And boy, I tell you what, renewed enthusiasm, renewed motivation or what, Hurley just loves this Riley. Still with a Porsche power plant. It's a different chassis for the Brumos organization, but he loves it. Loves the way it drives, loves the way it responds, and feels he can race for a win.
Of course, longtime tech man for NASCAR, Gary Nelson, has come on board that team and is doing some of the between race and at race strategy and engineering work, and they have really tuned up the performance of the Brumos Porsche gang.
Dawson, in addition to Gary Nelson, who of course we know from NASCAR, Norbert Singer, Porsche legend, is also in there. 16 wins at Le Mans for Porsche, and also Manfred Jean, who was a former director of Porsche Motorsport, is also on board at Brumos. You reckon they stand a good chance of winning? We'll find out. Reminding you that Pinks premieres February 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on Speed. This February, it's pride, it's passion, it's adrenaline. It's Pinks. Speed's hit series is back, and the excitement reaches its peak on the quarter-mile track in the negotiation circle. Lose the race, lose your ride. Wow, I think this poor fellow's lost his mind. He's 3 weeks early. Where's Jimmy? Well, we got Jimmy Johnson here, but no Jimmy Spencer. If you'd like to sit with Jimmy, reminding you to visit sitwithjimmy.com. There are still tickets available for this year's Daytona 500, but that's in 3 weeks' time. Dorsey, he reads a calendar like you do.
He's going to be pretty cold and wet and soggy tonight. He thinks Jimmy's coming out in that. He's sadly mistaken.
His arms will get tired too. Anyway, plenty of tickets available over there too, over on the Daytona International Speedway Superstretch Grandstand. Sitwithjimmy.com. Back with the action, back with Scott Pruett. He sits in fourth in the 0-1 after starting outside the top 10. He is in the thick of it. Check this out. He's coming up on the Mastercar Ferrari. That was quite heavily damaged during practice here earlier in the weekend. But if anyone can weave through traffic, Pruett can.
And that Ferrari was having a little bit of the bad wiggle going on right there in the exit of turn 2. And for Scott Pruett sitting there, he's looking at the back of that thing moving around. He has to have a plan B in case that car spins out, so he doesn't get involved, similar to what Alex Gurney did.
I'm looking forward to seeing these two go at it this year. Bill Auberlen and Scott Pruett, two great American drivers in the Daytona prototype class, and they are currently 4th and 5th respectively. It is a Lexus-powered Riley versus a BMW-powered Riley. Great combinations in the Rolex Sports Car Series, and Pruett is under pressure. Auberlen is fully fired up for this race.
Of course, Auberlen, a long-time BMW factory driver, and of course that car, like you say, the power plant is a BMW.
Gives you a good idea of the run down into the bus stop. Auberlen deep under brakes. Now Bill hands over in the 05 Siegel Sport machine to the likes of Gene Segal. Carl Wendling, a former F1 driver, is in this car, and Matthew Alhadeff as well. That's the foursome in the 05. Just 3 drivers in the car that he's chasing. Pruett, of course, teamed up with Juan Pablo Montoya and Salvador Duran. And the team guys tell me, Dorsey, down there at Ganassi, that Duran has blown them away with their speed. And speaking of speed, it's on. Look at this. For second, it's David Donohue and Mark Goosens. Donohue had him for a moment there, and Goosens holds strong in second.
Donohue was quite polite right there. He could have forced the issue, pushed Goosens across that curb you saw. He didn't do that.
There has been a lot of heads-up driving so far today. We're 57 laps into this race, and there have been some very sensible moves. There's been some forceful driving, but there's been some cautious driving.
That was a classic example right there. David Donohue could have taken that position by forcing the issue and driving his car alongside of Goosens, forcing him off the road. Of course, that could have wrecked both cars. He didn't do that. He thought about it. No need.
Right in the thick of it. Donohue's got a chance here. He goes for it. David Donohue goes for it. But Goosens hangs tough high. They're side by side on the banking. Out of the International Horseshoe. Up onto the NASCAR banking. Donohue's got him. This is a drag race to the bus stop. It's Porsche versus Pontiac. Pontiac up high in the Lowe's machine. Goosens does not want to relinquish this spot. And he doesn't. He's going to force David to go hard on the brakes. It is on, and that has allowed Pruett and Auberlen to catch up. We have got a race on our hands now. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Once again, Donohue being the gentleman, he could have forced the issue, but he didn't. He didn't. He said, okay, it's too early to be crashing his car. I'll let you go.
This is wonderful racing. You've got a Pontiac leading a Porsche, ahead of a Lexus, ahead of a BMW. Mixing it up with the power plants.
Here comes Pruett. He's got the big draft. He's got a good run down the inside. Once again, David Donohue doesn't block, does not impede that pass.
New 3rd place, and Pruett gets a run through on the GT car as well. Here comes Auberlen through, nice and clean on the AIM Doncaster Motorsport Porsche. Good, sensible driving. Well, it's on. Donohue will be kicking himself there, and he's left the door open for Auberlen as well. Bill puts it up the inside. but doesn't go through with it in that chance.
A little whiff of smoke out of the 05 there. Hopefully that's nothing bad going wrong.
Donohue had a sniff of second. He's now been put back into fourth and could drop to fifth. But it's early days, so much time left in this event. But they're feeling each other out, finding out where the weak spots are. Who's got the good straight line speed? And Bill Auberlen, you ride with him now, puts the BMW Riley into fourth.
I have to assume David Donohue under orders, strict regimen of orders to how to drive this race. Don't put the car in jeopardy. Don't fight with these guys early on. That's coming from Bob Snodgrass, the whole Brumos organization. They know how to win this race.
In the cockpit with Donohue.
And look how relaxed. Look how relaxed he is. He doesn't. It didn't bother him to lose those 3 positions this early in the race. That would not go down well tomorrow.
The distinct sound of that Porsche.
Revving along up there at about 9,600 revs. Sounds great.
It is certainly working hard. And it's been a long time between drinks for a win in the Rolex Sports Car Series for David Donohue. He, Mike Borkowski and Sasha Masson won the 6 hours at Mont Tremblant, but that was 4 years ago, back in 2003. He would love to be on the top step of the podium tomorrow afternoon.
You know, it's fun when you get into a group of cars and you know all these drivers in these cars are good drivers. It's fun to get in this little scrabble like they're doing right now. You realize the other guys around you aren't going to take you out, and you just get to get into a comfortable, fashionable rhythm.
AJ Allmendinger is the race leader, some 12.7 seconds out in front, ahead of Mark Goossens in the 91 Lowe's Riley Matthews car as he swings through on the inside of the SunTrust Pontiac Riley. That car had an extended time in the pits not that long ago. But let's continue to talk about this Lowe's machine, Calvin.
Well, Mark Goossens may be a name that even our speed viewers may not know that well. Certainly he's got a lot of sports car experience over the years. Not that much here in the United States, but talking to his team owner and co-driver this year, Jim Matthews, he said Mark is just unbelievably quick. Not only that, he's very smooth, he's very easy on the equipment. And really, when you have a guy like Bob Riley, who's been around so many great drivers over the years, say, this guy is maybe the best I've seen since AJ Foyt. That's really a testimony. He's now living over here full-time, moved to the Carolina area, and he's really going to put on a great show this year, I think, in that Lowe's machine.
Did a race last year in the Busch Series, a road race in the Busch Series last year. I think he finished top 10 from memory, and he also did one road race in the Nextel Cup Series. He's done virtually every series there is to run. He has done the American Le Mans Series, this series. He's done the Bell Car Championship. He was a Bell Car champion previously, but it is on for second. Pruett is turning up the heat on Goossens. He's had his time further back. Now Pruett's got a sniff at the front, and that's where he loves to drive, in the Telmex Chip Ganassi Lexus Riley.
Pruett had the run and could have made that pass, except for Goossens was really smart. He saw one of the GT cars and used it as a pick, blocking that inside line.
Getting through traffic is a regular feature point of sports car racing, but here it is crucial to do it cleanly. On the tight confines of the infield, this 3.5-mile road course at Daytona International Speedway, it gets tight and tricky. Auberlen now turns it up on Pruett. He works him. Goossens, Pruett, Auberlen, and then David Donohue.
And as you can tell, David Donohue has not lost ground. He's still there. He just let those guys do that dicing on their own.
Well, they'll be thoroughly enjoying themselves out there. Auberlen goes high up near the wall on Scott Pruett. Now it's a drag race again, but Pruett's got better track position. He pushes Auberlen a little higher.
And Donohue will take the bottom line more than likely to help the draft.
It's BMW on Lexus, but Pruett has the inside line to the bus stop. Will he hold the higher ground? No, Auberlen's got it. That shows you the front, the straight line front of that Dynon BMW. Auberlen is relishing his opportunity to be in a prototype once again. NASCAR is on speed, and it's going to be huge. The Dual 150s, February 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and it is live the most exhilarating qualifying event in NASCAR, and it's on speed. The dual 150s, where the drivers have one last shot to race their way into the Daytona 500. It's live right here on Speed. We are live here on Speed at the Rolex 24. You're looking at Bill Auberlen, who now owns second place in this race after getting by not only Scott Pruett, but he's got by the Lowe's machine of Mark Goossens as well. He's some 12.5 seconds behind AJ Allmendinger, but there are several cars you really get the feeling who are right in the mix, and this guy is going to be in the mix. Jimmy Johnson.
Jimmy, you're all kitted up and rearing to go. Now, you had the problem with the wrist over the off-season. How much seat time have you gotten this weekend to really know you're going to be in good shape for a long stint here today?
Yeah, I was able to get 2 test sessions in before I broke my wrist. I got some great quality seat time with the team, and then they've done a good job getting me some seat time here, and I've been up to speed. So it's a pleasure when the car drives this good. It doesn't take a lot of seat time.
What about if you get any kickback through the steering or anything like that? Do you feel anything, or is it rock solid?
No, it was rock solid. My first time out, I was concerned and wondered if I was going to have any strength issues, but it's all there. Everything's good. You just got to be safe when you're on a golf cart.
All right, mate, B. Have fun out there. Team is getting ready here. We expect pit stops shortly, guys.
Of course, Jimmy finished runner-up in this event back in 2005. Pruett threw another challenge there at Mark Goossens, but now he gets caught up behind some loose GT traffic. Car 89 was all over the shop then.
That's what you got to look out for. You're passing the guy and he spins out and takes you.
That's allowed Goossens to get away a little bit. Look at Bill Auberlen flashing the lights. He wants to get on through as he gets by the 08, the Mazda RX-8.
Goossens trying to go up the inside, and oh my goodness, 08 doesn't give him any room. He had to have known he was coming. They always tell you when one guy passes, you always look in the mirror because there's going to be another one behind it.
And that allowed Scott Pruett to close the margin on Mark Goossens as he comes by the 65 TRG Porsche. Brian.
Paul Edwards has brought the brand new Pontiac GXP-R in. A little GT action going on in pit lane, running 8th. These were the replacements for the very potent Pontiac GTO-R. They've been running well inside the top 10. Some teething problems right now, but Paul Edwards doing well, handing that car over to Kelly Collins, and they will get back out. The 06, we expect him in another lap.
Samax 11, the Sitco Pontiac Riley on pit road. Patrick Carpentier did a very nice opening stint and a half, so he's done well. And there is the sister car in there as well. Thomas Enger, what a dynamic start from the Czech driver also. 28th up to 9th. That has been a remarkable opening stanza. This is Jack Baldwin in for RVO Motorsports. For you regular viewers of the Rolex Sports Car Series, this was the Lowe's Fernandez car from last year. Roger Schramm, team owner, purchased this. Quite excited about the season ahead, and Roger Schramm and Jack Baldwin will compete in the majority of the races in this year's Rolex Sports Car Series.
All of these look to be very routine scheduled pit stops.
Brian.
Very routine. It's nice to see this car, not a mark on it, at least down the right side. I'll check the left side as well. I talked to Jack Baldwin earlier. He said, guys, I'm just having fun. It's nice to be back here. It's nice to be here with Roger Schramm and the guys. We're out to have fun. Yeah, we want to win this race, but it's all about having fun. And really, this race, as you guys know, it's about finishing. If you can make it to the end of 24 hours, you just may finish very well indeed.
58 is in, the Red Bull Brumos Porsche. This has been a front-running car for the majority of this race, now 65 laps old.
Well, the 58 is in. David Donohue jumping out. His regular teammate Darren Law taking the second shift here. David did a great job double stinting there. He did mention in the first stint that he felt that the engine was a little bit sluggish, and they said that he was running slightly high on the water temperature. They expect that to come down as we get towards the nighttime hours, but this Porsche really likes the cool weather. The team were really pumped up about the cool weather we saw earlier in the week, but a lot warmer here on race day. Good pit stop, but Darren stalls it momentarily. Pretty fired up to get his first race. And this team has really come an awful long way in the last 6 months since they switched to the Riley chassis.
75 Krone car is in, the Pontiac Riley. Max Pappas, you can see there, center of your screen. Balaclava off, helmet off, earplugs out. It's time for a rest and a drink. And the 02 Target, Chip Ganassi, Lexus Riley is in. This is the defending car It won last year. Not easily, mind you. They had some testing circumstances. It was Casey Mears, Scott Dixon and Dan Weldon. No Casey Mears this year. Instead, a young Mexican driver in Mimo Rojas, who has been out of the driver's seat for about 18 months. He is thrilled at this wonderful opportunity he's been given. The 6 is in. Race leading car is in. Cal.
AJ Allmendinger hops out. It's going to be Ian James taking over the driving chores right now. This car, as we know, is wounded. Can't really divulge what the problem is, but the team has said they've got an issue. Right now, they're changing the battery over on the right side as the rest of the servicing is going on, so that's some kind of indication as to what the problem may be. Mike Shank said, we need a yellow. We can't afford to put this car back in the garage area under green racing. Right now, we're hanging on by a thread. Let's go down to Mike.
Down here with the GT race leader right now, car 74, Tapple Racing. 4 fresh Hoosier tires that do take a gas. The fueling right now is taking a lot quicker than they did last year with the new restrictor. Wolf Hensler is now going into a triple. Over to Brian.
Johnny O'Connell just brought the 06 Banner Racing Pontiac GXP RN, handed over to team owner Leighton Reese. This team running well inside the top 5. Leighton having a little bit of problem getting that car started and fired as he rolls down pit road. Still no life in that Pontiac power plant. See if he can get it fired up. Remember, these are brand new cars. The switches a little bit strange to these guys trying to figure out where everything is. They will try to do what they can to get it back underway. Meanwhile, they'll pull it back down pit road, and we're hearing that the 10 car is in the garage.
It is indeed. The SunTrust Pontiac Riley is in. Now Wayne Taylor has stepped from the car, and Jan Magnussen climbs aboard. What is the story here? We have seen some big entries fall from contention early in this race. The 20 was sent to the garage. Now it's the 10 for Wayne Taylor Racing.
Well, we don't know what's wrong yet with the 10, but I can tell you what's wrong with the 6. It also has lost an alternator. What they did, they changed the battery. They don't have time to put a new alternator on. They put a brand new fresh battery in, and they're trying to buy the time until a caution comes.
Chris is with Wayne Taylor. Chris, go on.
That's right, Lee. Wayne Taylor bringing this car to the garage. He's taking his helmet off right now. Wayne, obviously major problems with the SunTrust machine. What's going on?
We seem to have some sort of electronic issue. The engine is intermittent coming in and coming out, and problem with the power steering. Seems like an electrical issue.
Obviously a very frustrated Wayne Taylor down here. Now the question is going to be, is this related to the problem with the 20 car too? Both engines made out of CRD. Cal?
Well, indeed, the 20 car was having a problem with their coil, so maybe a similar issue there, but the 91 car is in right now. Mark Houston's brought the car in. A little bit of a strange angle, an open pit box there, and the mechanics actually put the car back and get that car lined up so the refueling rig could be connected. Jimmy Johnson going to see his first action of the day. He missed the early test here in January, but he was in the car back in December at Kershaw and also at Homestead, so he's had laps in the car. He felt very comfortable with his speed this weekend, and right now they're just trying to get him buckled in. All the rest of the servicing is completed. Now the fueling has taken a lot shorter time this year. They've got a bigger fuel restrictor, which makes the fuel flow a lot quicker. They've taken about 8 to 10 seconds off the fuel flow. What that means is if the driver changes any hang-ups we saw there, it does cost you time in the pits.
Well, drama for Wayne Taylor Racing and the entire SunTrust organisation. Frustration down there in their pit box. It's been a roller coaster ride here at the 24. Several years ago, they ran out of fuel right near the end. In 2005, they won with Taylor, Angelelli, and Emmanuel Collard. Last year with Collard on board, look at that. It doesn't get more dramatic, does it? And that was early in the race, and their day was done. Less dramatic circumstances this time, as Bill Riley and the team made the decision that it was over and out last year. Fingers crossed for the boys that it's not that case. As the race-leading car is in, Bill Auberlen has done a magnificent job bringing that car from back in 21st position into the lead of the race within 67 laps. BMW has performed beautifully. Matthew Al-Hadef behind the wheel. Gene Segal and Carl Wendlinger, the other drivers in the 05 Universal Express BMW Riley.
Well, Steve Dinan, the engine builder for that car, will be quite happy about that.
Well, looks like a
pretty good pit stop there by the Siegel Sport team. Obviously very excited with the progress this team has made over the winter period. Bill Auberland has really been on a charge, not only on the racetrack, but during the off-season. They've got a lot of new personnel. Rick Mayer is the engineer. Gilbert Lage, who used to work in Formula One with Alain Prost, is here on board. And this team is really turning things around in a hurry. Right now, Matt Al-Hadaf is behind the wheel. And this team just looking for a good, clean run with that new sponsor on board, Luggage Express.
Scott Pruett inherits the lead of this motor race. The 0-1 Telmex Ganassi Lexus Riley is in the lead and has a handy margin at the moment. Now, the Mike Shank Racing Lexus is in. Oswaldo Negri did the opening stint. Brian standing by. This looks like Elio Castroneves to me. Gets behind the wheel for what will be an exciting stint. His first ever in the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Twice an Indy 500 winner, but he has never done anything like this. So we wish Elio well. Hopefully it's a good, clean, smooth, fast run as the Mike Shank team send him on his way. 10 back on pit road. That's promising signs.
It is indeed. You know, all of these electrical problems are kind of strange. This is strange because we used to say electrical problems meaning the engine blew, but these are electrical problems. These alternator failures and so forth. We saw them over the years, but there's an awful lot of them going on today. I don't know why that is.
While it looked quite dramatic, forcing the car into its garage, it's not too bad. Yes, lost time, no doubt about that. But in the big scheme of a 24-hour, that wasn't too bad.
One of the telltale signs, what we're talking about, is that the power steering. Oh, we've got one car, the 20 cars back off the banking, running slowly. That telltale. Oh, that one's smoking. We might have lost an engine here.
Well, they lost 2 engines at testing.
No, there's a right rear cut down.
Right, yeah, there's a right rear.
I think we've cut a right rear down.
This is one of the strongest cars in the field. Problems for the 20. Jackson Hewitt, Subway, Pontiac-powered Crawford. Car that regularly runs at the front of the field in the Rolex Sports Car Series. Third car in shot there. That's the AIM Motorsport car of young Mark Wilkins and the Frizzell brothers. This is the first ever Riley built. This was originally a Ganassi car. And Mark Wilkins and David Empringham will run that throughout the entire 2007 season. "70 laps down, and Ganassi's Scott Pruett is the race leader. And not too far away, we'll be handing over. Will it be Montoya or Salvador Duran? It's time for Dorsey and I to have a break. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs will be back on the other side of this break.
Speed's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Simple, fresh American dining from start to finish. And powered by Pontiac and the 260 horsepower Solstice GXP. And welcome back to a beautiful late winter afternoon at Daytona Beach, Florida. And you're watching a man at work at his favorite office. This is Juan Pablo Montoya. He of Champ Car, Indianapolis 500 and Formula One fame, soon to be a full-time NASCAR Nextel Cup and Busch Series driver. But today, he is among a galaxy of international racing stars, hoping to score a victory in the world's most important sports car race, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. I'm Bob Varsha, along with David Hobbs, Chris Neville, and Mike Johnson are in the pit lane. And Juan Pablo Montoya is on his first racing stint here at the Rolex.
Just completed his first lap, in fact. So Juan Pablo Montoya, a man of many skills, as we saw, a winner of the Monte Carlo Grand Prix and the Monza Grand Prix, among others. Here he is on the Daytona road course, coming down to the International Horseshoe in the western end of the banking, just under the banking over in there.
The man he replaces in that car is Scott Pruett, a former winner of this race. Let's hear from him now with Chris Neville.
Oh, Scott, we've been caution-free from the get-go, only a couple hours into it. Are you at all surprised with the pace of the race?
Hi to my family at home.
Our car, the Telmex car is great. I mean, I'm just running an easy pace, and we just kept reeling people in. 2 or 3 laps were by, 2 or 3 laps were by. The only guy that's driving a little aggressive out there is Oberlin. He's driving, I think it's for the start of the race, looks like he's driving at the end of the race. He's just taking a lot of chances. It's got a lot of guys got to hang out. But our car is real good. Turn it over to Juan and just keep doing what we're doing.
Oh, we've got action back in the chicane. One of the GT Porsches has spun around. That's the 88 car. I didn't see what might have tipped him into it.
That's Tom Pank down in 42nd spot. Overall, has to be let back on the track if you go through the chicane like that. In fact, I think that was the car that won Pablo.
Oh, we've got, that's car number 6.
Yes.
That held the race lead with A.J. Allmendinger, but looks like the left front suspension or tire has come unglued.
Wow, that's just been taken over by Matthew Alhade. Don't know much about him, but as you can see, it's just flat.
Let me excuse me, Dave. That's Ian James, who is sharing the number 6 for Michael Shank Racing with A.J. Allmendinger, Henry Zogabe, and Paul Tracy.
Well, it looks like it's just gone flat. There's no damage anywhere. Doesn't look like he's hit something.
Oh boy, we began with all kinds of action about 3 hours ago in this race. With a long, long way to go. We've seen all kinds of calamity, mechanical, electrical, and of course the contact that is inevitable when you get 70 race cars manned by over 200 drivers of varying levels of ability, all looking for one thing, and that is a win in the Rolex 24.
Well, we've gone 73 laps so far in this race. As Lee Diffie was pointing out earlier on, we've gone many, many laps in this race, but out of caution, which is pretty extraordinary considering the amount of cars, drivers, and driver ability out there. As Oliver Gavin said yesterday at one of the press conferences, he called it mixed ability, which I thought was very gentlemanly of him. In other words, some of them are incredibly slow.
Let's take another look at what happened to the 6. Well, as you said, no sign of any contact. He was smoking when he came into camera view, went straight on at turn 1.
Ooh, it looks like it just went down. When he put the brakes on the course, that wheel would just lock up. And of course, just going right by the pit, so he's got to go the whole 3.5 miles, which of course just kills you when you're sitting in the car waiting for the tire to come apart and wreak even more damage on the car.
Saw the number 23 Ruby Tuesday car making its way down the pit lane. Meanwhile, the 20 is back out of the garage after a litany of problems on that car. Let's find out more from the pit lane.
Bob Butchleitzinger back in with the 20 machine. It seems like that coil issue has come back, so the team's still trying to figure out what is going on with this coil, why they continue to have these electrical problems with this car. So sitting down here trying to get a quick fix. Also checked in with Mike Shank Racing on the number 6 machine. Ian James has had a blowout, so he's going to come back to pit lane. He's going to replace that tire, but they're also going to try and deal with the electrical issues on that car. I asked Mike what are those issues. He's still being pretty tight-lipped about that, but it seems like the big issue of the day seems to be electrical for everybody.
So it does. Meanwhile, the number 6 on your screen has just come off of NASCAR turn 4, about to reach pit in.
And of course, terrible temptation to drive very, very fast here. And of course, you've just got to be so careful and so slow.
While we have a moment, let's take a look at a recap of the Daytona prototype class action thus far here at the Rolex 24. Early on in the race, problems for a GT car. Mike Oriema had the hood come right up in his face. He ran into our pole sitter, Alex Gurney, in the 99, has had a trouble time since then. Lots of passing, 6 lead changes in all. But we've also had several key competitors go to the garage for extended stints. Great battle there between a couple of the DPs. Big problems for the former race champions, the SunTrust team from Wayne Taylor Racing. There are the numbers thus far. 74 laps complete, 6 different leaders, 7 changes. Right now, it's one Pablo Montoya in the 01. The Telmex car from Chip Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates. And in the GT class, it's car number 74, Wolf Hensler, sharing with Eric Glux, Dominic Farnbacher, and Jim Taffel in a Porsche GT3. Now the 6 car has gone to the garage. We'll send a camera over there and see what we can learn. Now the Daytona prototype class in Grand Am racing this year went to a common ECU, electronic control unit, that manages the electrical functions on the car, basically everything. Thank you, David.
Well, they went to the common ECU because Grand American Racing decided they did not want these drivers to have the advantage of traction control. It's obviously expensive to control, it's expensive to run, and of course it's very hard for anybody to police whether you've got it or not. So to make it easy for themselves, Grand American came up with Bosch Electronics to come up with a common ECU for all of these cars, and maybe it's not working so well on some of these engines.
Well, everyone I spoke to said that the transition has not been all that difficult, but when you have this many electrical problems going on a race, you have to wonder. Now this is a great battle for 5th place. Jimmy Johnson, the Nextel Cup and Daytona 500 champion, trying to hold off 18-year-old Colin Braun, who first came to the Rolex 24 2 years ago when he raced with, among others, a couple of other 16 years old. It was known as Team 16. They raced in the GT class, finished about 7th, as I recall. Also had Ross Bentley, their driver coach, on the team. It's a great effort.
I remember when I first came to race in America, well, I came here, the very first race I did in America was the very first one of these in 1962, the 3-hour Intercontinental, which Bill France put on, and certainly has grown since then. But when I started coming to America regularly, you couldn't drive in a race until you were 21, a road race. Now you got all these 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
Well, Lee Diffie talked about it earlier. Colin Braun might have had a share of the Drivers' Championship in the class last year when he drove with Jörg Bergmeister, who won it solo, simply because the youngster was too young to take part in several of the races that involved tobacco sponsorship. Not the Grand Am, but one of the other shows on the weekend. And under the Attorney's General agreement with the tobacco industry, no one under the age of 21 could be or 18 could be involved in that kind of enterprise. I call it the Kyle Busch rule because he was the first driver, in my knowledge, to have been knocked out of a race through no fault of his own, but simply because of his youth.
It's a pretty extraordinary rule. If you're going to let them go out there and dice with death, which some of them do, and not let them be associated with some alcohol or tobacco, seems pretty weird to me. But
now it's a three-way battle for 4th as Jimmy Johnson looks up under Matthew Al-Hadef. It didn't look like he gave him much room there, but Johnson forges on as they leap up onto the banking in NASCAR turns 1 and 2.
You don't fool with someone like Jimmy Johnson. Even though he's got a plastic car around him instead of a metal car, he still isn't going to give any quarter.
Oh, and look at Colin Braun right up on Johnson's
nice drop. He's getting a big drop.
And look at the Krone car, the bright green one, moving around in the slipstream of the car ahead.
Well, Colin Braun goes underneath, so he resumes that position right behind Jimmy Johnson.
It's now Johnson 4th, Braun in 5th, Al-Hadef in 6th, and in the garage, the troubles continue. But this battle is long from over. We'll be back live to Daytona International Speedway in just a moment. Turn your plain Jane cell phone into a souped-up hot rod. Just log on to speedtv.com for custom wallpaper and ringtones. Speed Mobile. Log on to speedtv.com right now. You can download your favorite ringtone and wallpaper. Back at Daytona, clouds starting to build up slightly. Sun beginning to dip toward the horizon, which means it'll be in the driver's eyes late in the game. There is Chris Festa in the number 7 Pontiac Riley. Festa from Atlanta, Georgia. Good friend of my racing son, Matt. We drove go-karts together. Late addition to this driver team. Found himself stranded in the chicane on the backside. We don't know exactly how he got there.
Done a bit of damage to the front end there. Either dug in as he went into the chicane, into the grass in the middle. Unless he clipped the wall first, but not absolutely sure what happened. We just came on and stuck in the infield there.
Oh, well, they go to work on that car. Let's find out some more about what's going on with the 6. Here's Chris Neville.
I'm still down in the garages with the Mike Shank team. Paul, any idea what's going on with the car?
Well, we had a tire fail when Ian got in the car, and right from about an hour in, we had an alternator fail and started losing voltage. And Mike came over the radio and told AJ, said, "Hey, look, you got to go. We got a problem. Just go as fast as you can go." And it was really cool watching AJ how fast he went and pulled that big lead for us. But we've got a small problem right now. We just had a tire blow, so we thought we'd take the time and change the alternator, and then hopefully we're trying to wait for a yellow and just run the car until a yellow, but it didn't work out.
A lot of the Lexus teams had alternator problems last year at the same race. Does this problem stem at all from that?
I don't know. I mean, some had problems. We didn't have any problems, but we had, kind of mechanical issues. But, some Pontiac teams are having problems. We're not out of it by any means. We got a long way to go.
Well, A.J. Allmendinger definitely showed that the 6 machine is very fast. Bob, I also had a chance to check in on the 10 and the 20. Now, both of those cars have power plants that are built by CRD, Cronin Racing, and they are saying that it is a coil issue with both cars. They're thinking that the coil is overheating. They're trying to figure out ways that they can cool that down, bring the temperature down so they don't have those electrical problems. But very interesting that some of the Pontiacs, especially the ones built by CRD, are having that problem.
All right, thanks very much, Chris. You heard Paul Tracy. He has tried twice before in this race, hasn't yet gotten past the 12-hour mark. But you can hear in his voice that he is still optimistic about the Rolex 24. There's the race leader, Juan Pablo Montoya. Just 31 years old, but already he's accomplished so much in motorsports. You can be sure there's a lot more ahead for him.
He's got a challenge coming this year in Nextel Cup. It's going to be very different for him. There's no doubt about it. He's going to find it extraordinarily different to Formula One. And we wish him luck, obviously, but it's going to be very difficult for him. But he's certainly taken to this like a duck to water. Here comes his teammate, Scott Dixon, down the inside. Now that GT car just spoiling that. There you can see that dirt that Dorsey Schrader was talking about early on, getting up there on the chicane, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And when it rains later on, which we have an 80% chance of rain in the night, that is then going to turn to some old, nice, gooey old mud. So it should be really exciting down there.
Boy, if it rains.
And of course, all that dust, it's very sandy. That gets in the working. So that could cause mechanical problems for some of these guys later on when all that sand acts as like a sandblaster, which is what it is. Those coils, you know, heating up, it may not be the engine manufacturer's fault. It may just be where the coil sits in some cars. Obviously, these cars with a lot of bodywork on, it gets very hot under all that bodywork. We see the same sort of thing in Formula One where those engines are tightly encapsulated in all the bodywork. Most of these cars very tightly encapsulated. You can't put holes everywhere because you want the aerodynamics to work, and those coils could be in the wrong place and just getting hot.
There's a look at the top 3 in the production-based GT category. Wolf Hensler, Pierre Errit, 1-2 in the class, both in Porsches. Let's get more from Mike Johnson.
Yeah, there's a great battle going on in GT right now. All 3 of those cars are actually in between their pit stops right in the middle. The main thing to watch right now is that Wolf Hensler in the lead car from the very beginning is on his 3rd straight stint. So he's been in the car for a very long time, but he's still putting in great lap times. Pierre Errit just got in the car. His lap times are a little bit slower right now than what Nathan Schwartzbaugh is doing in 3rd place. So what the Tafel team right now is really starting to push Nathan a little bit, try to get a 1-2, you know, have some placement right now with a 1-2 right now. And what they're trying to do is slowly start knocking some laps off these other cars in case we get that full course yellow that everyone's waiting for.
Those 2 front runners in class, Wolf Hensler and Pierre Errit, both former winners in class here at the Rolex, so they know what they're about.
Holsitter, now driven the number 81 car, now driven by Richard West, is a minute behind.
Aboard with the Red Bull car.
This is Darren Law, who's taken over from David Donohue, who was looking very racy towards the end of that coming up to his 2nd pit stop. Most drivers have so far done 2 stints, except as we look at that, Wolf Hensler there is on to his 3rd, so he's going to end up doing nearly 3 hours before he has his change.
At that point, he'll be required to get out of the car. You can see the shadows growing long. Back to the 01, Montoya.
And now you see on that camera there, looking through that windscreen, you can see some of those little pits that come in there. That's what happens to these windscreens here. They do get sandblasted. And that's going to be really nasty if it should rain later on. The driver's being spared that sinking sun here right about this time of night as you go down this out of the International Horseshoe. And as you come out of NASCAR 4, the sun can be blinding. The 2 lead cars, the Ganassi cars, looking very strong at the moment. Picking their way through the traffic. You can see a lot of traffic in front of them. Juan Pablo saying, oh, God, look at that lot. I hope they're looking in the mirror.
Well, I have to tell you, I've talked to Juan Pablo now and again for many years now, since he came to the United States to run in the old Barber Dodge Pro Series. And I can't recall him being as relaxed as he seems to be right now. Arguably, he'll be busier than he ever has been in his career, but he's living at home in South Florida with his wife and children with him. And he is absolutely relaxed. At the top of the hour here at Daytona Beach, Florida, you're watching Speed live coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona with David Hobbs. I'm Bob Varsha up high in the announce booth. Mike Johnson and Chris Neville down in the pit lane. We'll be with you until 6 o'clock Eastern time, then break away for a couple of hours. We'll come back from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern when Lee Diffie and Dorsey Schrader will take you up to 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Then we'll come back at 6 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday morning for live coverage straight through to the finish of the 45th Rolex 24 at Daytona here on Speed.
Because if Juan Pablo, I mean, we're looking ahead a little bit here, but if he should win this, I mean, what a glittering record. The Indy 500, Champ Car champion, Monte Carlo Grand Prix winner. Doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Well, you're right about one thing. We're a little premature talking about it right now, seeing as how we've
just only got 21 and a half hours to go.
Scott Dixon right there behind him.
Boy, that traffic is still heavy as he look at him right in the middle of that traffic. And Darren Law, this traffic that catch Darren Law now is right behind Scott Dixon.
It's inevitable that we make comparisons between the Rolex 24 and that other famous 24-hour race you see here on Speed, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, but they could hardly be more different. Run in the summertime in France, very little darkness, an 8-mile loop, and only 48 invited cars means that traffic is not nearly as much of a problem as it is here on this 3.5-mile, very tight in places, combined NASCAR oval and infield road course at Daytona International Speedway.
Well, this course is very hard work because it's very tight, very constricted. It's sort of, you feel a bit like you're running inside a bowl, which you are, of course. You're running inside the Daytona Speedway bowl. So you've got tight corners, you've got a lot of dust and dirt on the track, and a terrific amount of traffic. You know, 70-car start of this race. It's 3.5 miles. Obviously, Le Mans 8 miles, 8.5 miles. Sweeping curves out in the countryside. When it's dark at Le Mans, of course, it's much darker than it is here because now this place is all floodlit. But of course, it's only dark for a few hours, whereas here it's going to be dark in another hour until about 7 o'clock in the morning. Look at this now. There's that sun I was telling you about. Not too bad. It's being muted by a bit of high overcast, but it can be troublesome. And Darren Law is right on the tailpipe of Scott Dixon.
On board the 18 car, Uwe Alsen, another former class winner.
And a great German driver, very successful in DTM and other races in Europe, coming over to drive the prototype car here.
Just ahead of the race leader, Juan Pablo Montoya, desperately trying to keep from being lapped is Sasha Maassen in the number 39. Maassen, well, this GT driver, what's he going to do? He is the meat in the sandwich as first Maassen, then Montoya, then Scott Dixon come blazing past.
Sacre bleu, as they would say at Le Mans.
39 is a Porsche-powered Crawford chassis. Sasha Maassen sharing with Emmanuel Collard, Eddie Cheever Jr., and Christian Fittipaldi in another stellar driver lineup.
Very stellar driver lineup. The car has not been quick all weekend for some reason or other, and weaving it out of this traffic, you got to have eyes in the back of your head here, because you've got to be watching the mirror. It's no good dodging about because the guy behind you might go low and you go high, and as you say, that Porsche, the meat in the sandwich there, the GT car.
One of the things that makes the Rolex 24 one of my favorite races in the world is this stellar driver lineup and the fact that, unlike the 24 Hours of Le Mans, a competent enthusiast driver, if you will, gentleman driver with the proper funding can come out here and mix it up with some of the greatest stars of the sport. You can't necessarily do that at Le Mans where there's only 48
mix it up.
cars.
Oh, boy, oh boy, there.
Montoya and Maassen.
Sasha Maassen, not exactly a wilting flower when it comes to giving up road space.
Lest we forget, we have a new race leader as Scott Dixon got by in the chicane. That was Dixon and not Montoya. Now Montoya will set out after his teammate, the newly engaged. And by that I mean to be married, Scott Dixon. We'll take a break and return with more live from the Rolex 24 here on Speed. Welcome back, and there is the usual scrum we expect in traffic at the Rolex 24 here at Daytona International Speedway. With David Hobbs, I'm Bob Varsha. Mike Johnson and Chris Neville are down in the pit lane. Scott Dixon is leading for the Telmex Chip Ganassi with Felix Sabatis racing team, but his teammate, Juan Pablo Montoya, is just a couple of cars back. and trying desperately to claw his way up to his teammate's gearbox.
Well, they're having a lot of trouble with the white car there, which is J.C. France in the 59, the Brumo's car. He held them all off for a whole lap there. Scott Dixon squeezed by going into the turn 1, but France is still still staying in front of Montoya. Montoya has got Darren Law about 2 inches behind him.
The famously aggressive Juan Pablo Montoya. I mentioned earlier that he seems incredibly laid back these days, driving for Chip Ganassi, his car owner. Earlier this weekend, for example, we asked Juan Pablo why he's chosen to run the Rolex 24.
Chip asked me to, and I said, yeah, it'd be fun. It seems like a fun race. His thing is going to be pretty hard, and it's not far from home or anything, and so why not? In a way, it's good. The banking's got quite a bit of bumps, and when I get back here in the Cup car, it's going to help me know where to go, a little bit of the race lines and stuff. So from that point of view, it's going to help.
You saw a heck of a shuffle just there. He
got by JC down then. His teammate Scott Dixon locked up, and I don't know whether he lifted off and was throwing a bit of caution. Being a little bit cautious there. There's 42 car, which your son hopefully will be driving later on.
Hopefully.
That's the one whose hood opened, or the front bonnet opened.
Right.
Coming off NASCAR 4, right in front of poor old Alex Gurney, which of course started the beginning of the end for Alex Gurney, our pole sitter. Look at this lot, trying to get around JC. Darren Law going around the outside now.
David Kemmer currently behind the wheel of the number 42 Salence Porsche GT3 Cup car. And there goes J.C. France in that unmistakable Brumo's paint scheme. Down the long super stretch.
J.C. France, of course, the son of Jim France, who really is the guiding light behind Grand American Racing's renaissance for the 5 years that him and Edmondson have been running this. It's become a real powerhouse in racing now. And like I said before, you've probably got one of the best fields of drivers that you're going to find anywhere this year. Incredible depth of talent in this. 6 Indy 500 winners, 7 Champ Car or IL champions, 4 NASCAR Cup champions, a Monte Carlo Formula 1 winner, which you've been looking at, 10 drivers with Formula 1 experience. Woo! J.C. France, of course, not having any of those behind him, but still sliding around a bit.
Let's go a little bit further back in the overall and the Daytona prototype class. On board with Elio Castroneves, 2-time Indy 500 winner. He got on board about 40 minutes ago, just before David Hobbs and I came on the air, driving the number 60 Lexus Riley, sharing with Oswaldo Negri, Mark Patterson, and fellow Indianapolis 500 winner Sam Hornish Jr. Getting his first taste of racing in anger here at Daytona. Of course, he's used to driving an open cockpit Indy car, so we asked him how it feels to have a roof over his head.
They're telling me to pit, and I'm like, no, we need one more lap. They said, no, the practice is over. Oh, okay. Unfortunately, in IndyCar, you don't have a roof, so it's easy for you to actually find out if it's the checker flag there or not. So it was one of the funniest stories that I have so far, so hopefully we don't have any more.
This guy is full of funny stories. When he came to his first test, Mark Patterson, who's taken a big step up in competitiveness to get into a Daytona prototype, was ready to rush off to a business meeting, and into the transporter stepped Elio Castroneves, who said, wait a minute, somebody's got to tell me where the braking points are. How do I drive around this racetrack? What I need to do? So Patterson said, well, here I am, a gentleman driver, if you will, and I'm telling a two-time Indy 500 champion how to drive a race car around Daytona. Castroneves, he is something else. Talks about the time he had a great race in Champ Car, got a phone call from his idol Emerson Fittipaldi one night. So of course you can imagine the comedy routine. No, this isn't. Who is this really? Well, finally Emerson convinced him that he was in fact calling his fellow Brazilian to offer congratulations. Castroneves says, I had to put Emerson on hold and go and put my pants on. I was in my pajamas and I couldn't speak with Emerson Fittipaldi in my underwear.
Does he? The twerp. Number 70 sliding around there. That's David Haskell.
Let's go to Mike Johnson in the pit lane.
Randy, your cars were running second and third place at the beginning of the race, real strong, looking good, but now you're running 9th and 10th. What happened to drop down so far?
Well, number one, I can't wait to get in that RX-8. I'm the 4th driver, and it's driving me crazy. The cars are still fabulous. We had a problem in our fuel rig. The vent line that lets the air out of the tank while the fuel's going in, it failed. It collapsed, kinked, wouldn't flow fuel. So that caused us long pit stops.
So was the team ready to go, and did they just replace the fuel hose itself and then get back together, and then were one car out and the other one had to come in?
Yeah, Speed Source jumped right on it. That's what they've done. Got a new part on the rig. And we're all back to square one now with just a little bit more urgency in our speed. But it's still very, very early.
All right, well, Randy Popes is a 2-time winner to the 24 Hours of Daytona, so he's sitting here actually very relaxed but very anxious to get in that car. He knows that there's still a long way to go, and they got a very fast car.
Always with a smile on his face. On board, the number 70 Mazda RX-8. He's getting attacked by the 75 car. Oops, well, that'll help. 75 was to his driver's left, so he used the slower car as a pick. Oh, there goes the 75 up the other side.
This is a kink, very fast left-hand sweep. The road dips down on the apex there, but if you get too high, you find yourself flying around on the grass because you don't get any help from any camber. This is a nasty little corner too. This long right-hander under the banking there on the west end of the circuit. We'll see a lot of accident this turn here. This very tight left-hander, very tight going in. Of course, then it widens out as you go up onto the banking, so you can get on it very early, but it's very tight apex.
Prototypes much more aerodynamically sleek than the production-based GT cars. They have a lot more horsepower as well, and thus there is a tremendous speed differential between the prototypes and the GT machinery.
And of course, an even bigger differential. Some of the GT cars are driven by drivers of, as Oliver Gavin says, mixed ability, and they suddenly can be going very slow. There you can see the Mazda being passed by the two leaders. Darren Law now behind him as they go through the chicane. He'll blow by as they come out of the chicane.
David Haskell at the controls of the 70. Randy Popst, as you heard, wants to get in, and there is Sam Hornish Jr., 3-time IndyCar champion and this year's Indy 500 winner, awaiting his turn. The sun is getting low here at Daytona, but the race will go on. Stay with us. The fastest weeks in racing, Daytona Speed Weeks, are coming to NASCAR on Speed. Don't miss the scramble to make the field for NASCAR's marquee event. Practice to qualifying speed will be everywhere on and off the track. Speed Weeks on Speed, live from right here in Daytona, starting February 8th. The carnival is fully on here at Daytona International Speedway as we are now working our 4th hour of 24 that make up the Rolex 24 at Daytona. With David Hobbs, I'm Bob Varshall. Look at that infield, the biggest crowd we've seen in years here at Daytona International Speedway. Even in the grandstands, where road race fans typically don't like to sit, they prefer to be right down there along the fences watching their heroes go by. But even the grandstands have a pretty good scattering of fans. Look at that.
Well, they shut the infield at like 9:30 this morning with a 1:30 race start, so that's a pretty healthy sign, I'd have said. A little bit chilly. Unfortunately, the air temperature's a bit low. The sun was out earlier on, but it's clouding up, and weather forecast calls for rain after midnight sometime through tomorrow morning. On board with Darren Law, who's had a terrific run, got by Scott Dixon. Juan Pablo Montoya had managed to get by both of them and is now leading again, and Darren Law is a hot second.
Through the bus stop chicane on the backstretch. Let's get more on this car from Chris Neville.
Well, Bob, they've been developing that car since about midway through last season when they switched from the Fab Car chassis over to the Riley chassis at Barber, and the team really getting used to it, really starting to love the chassis. The driver's saying it is just wonderful to drive. I've been listening to Darren Law on the radio for about the past 10 laps, and he said he's just cruising right now. He's trying to conserve fuel. However, he is making up some positions on the racetrack, so it looks like this race is really going their way. I checked in with Bob Snodgrass, said, Bob, everything's looking great right now. You got to love the position you're in. And he said, you know what, Chris, I've done this thing way too many times. Everything's going good, but we still have way too far to go.
Whoa, oh my. That's your car.
Yep,
That's
well,
your 42
well,
car.
it's not my car, but thank you anyway.
Well, did you pay the $1 for it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Darren Law is a racer, and racers don't typically like to spend a lot of time twiddling their thumbs during the offseason. And in this offseason, Darren Law didn't. Listen to what he did.
Normally, you expect to have a nice, quiet off-season, but I didn't have one this year. I went with a group called Kelly Moss Racing, some Porsche guys that I work with, and we did the Baja 1000 in a buggy this year. It was dangerous. It was. I saw cars flipped over. I saw things on fire. I mean, I was worried I was going off a cliff into the ocean. I have no problem doing 180 mile an hour in this thing, but that, I was worried. It was cool though.
Certainly sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? Now there is the number 82 car. A few moments ago, it was sitting quietly on the infield in a very precarious position just beyond the high-speed kink. There's Chris Pallas. They have dropped out of the top 50 in the overall while they bring that car in to work on it. This is one of the Team Seattle cars. Don Kitch Jr., Chris Pennington, Chris Pallas, Tony Balcutt, raising money once again this year for the Seattle Children's Hospital. They've been doing this for over a decade now. Raised $2.2 million. This year they're going for $500,000. They have a record number of pledges for each lap they complete in competition. There's the 0-1, Juan Pablo Montoya back in the lead.
Up there. He didn't like that down low breathing down his neck.
Darren Law charging hard.
Just Juan Pablo saying, who is this Darren Law? Never heard of him.
He's raced against a lot of different individuals.
Pablo more used to rubbing shoulders with Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso et al. Kimi Räikkönen.
Scott Dixon has dropped back to third. Let's hear more on Montoya from Chris.
Well, Bob, just listening to the team, and they saw Darren getting that run on Montoya, and they said, Juan, remember, we got a long way to go here, so just let him go if you want to. I can't imagine telling Juan Montoya to let another driver go.
Well, that 42 car, the Porsche, rather stymied him. He thought he was going to go sneaking down the outside into the International Horseshoe, but it didn't quite work out like that. Colin Brown in the 75 car seems to be losing a lot of pace. I don't know whether our intrepid Pruett guys can find out what's up with him. He was with Jimmy Johnson. He's now 40-odd seconds behind Johnson, so I don't know if he's got a problem with the 75 car.
Listen to that whine.
There's those bumps that Juan Pablo is so interested in finding. You'll find they're in a very different pitch and a different position in his stock car, and of course he won't be able to pick his line in the stock car. He's going to be in 40 of those cars racing around together.
Some of the cars we hear actually bottoming out in those corners over those bumps, but Darren Law did not in the Brumos car.
When we were on board with Montoya, you could hear it touching, because it might have been just full of fuel. It may go away as the car lightens out.
Now there's the 77, the 10th place car in both the prototype class and the overall. Fabrizio Golin, regular in the FIA endurance racing circles in Europe. This is a Doran chassis, the only one in the field. A car like this won the Rolex 24 not that long ago. There is Fabrizio. Let's get more from Mike Johnson.
Well, I just spoke to Kevin Duran, the team owner for Doran Racing. He said right now things couldn't be better. They had one pit stop that went a little slow. They were actually boxed out. A car on the inside wouldn't let him get into his pit box, so he actually stopped. The team had to push him back in there. They lost a minute. They just went down a lap, but Kevin's won this race 5 times. He feels very confident right now. He says no ECU problems, no electrical problems. They're doing everything they want to do. And if anybody knows how to win this race, it's definitely Kevin Doran.
That's right. He's won it, I believe, 7 times in all as a mechanic, a crew chief, a team owner, and the list goes on and on. Worked with the late Al Holbert for many years.
Very heavily involved with Al Holbert and Derek Bell when they had their very successful run back there in the 80s.
75 pits. Colin Braun remains in the car to Chris Neville.
Bob, Colin going to stay in the 75 machine. They haven't said that anything is wrong with the car, but it does sound like quite a few drivers still complaining that they're not getting any traction coming off the corners. So the team decided to bring him in, get some new Hoosiers on this car, try and hook them up out there. Listening to a couple other drivers, everybody just saying they're having a very difficult time getting off the corners.
You saw them there wiping that clag off the radiator duct at the front. Here comes Darren Law in for his stop.
From second.
A lot of rubber, rolled up rubber gets on the track here, and of course they've got this new Hoosier tire, and of course with no traction control, those rear tires will be spinning more than they would normally, which of course obviously wears the tires down, makes the car more difficult to drive, puts more in the driver's hands.
And now pulling in just behind them is the sister car, the 59, Chris Neville.
Well, everything good going with Darren's stop here. He's going to stay behind the wheel. Now, the thing with the Hoosier tire is they did make a change to this tire over the off-season, and that change was done to the front tire. A lot of the drivers saying that the car is definitely hooked up on the front end.
No. Oh, dear.
The air hose.
Looked like that fuel rig was definitely hooked up there, but nothing broke, so it shouldn't be any other problems other than probably trying to reattach some hoses to the fuel rig, but nothing broke on the car there. Now, what I was saying about the tire is the changes they made were to the front tires. So a lot of drivers saying that the front tires are working very well, but since the front tires are working so well, those rears are seeming to give up. So a lot of teams right now trying to figure out what do we need to do to try and balance this car out. We have a long way to go. We can't keep burning down rear tires.
It looks like Mike Colucci on the engineering staff for this team, working with the crewman to figure out what happened. It looks like
the crewman, I thought the crewman waved him out, but maybe the crewman was telling him not to go, but whatever, you know, the driver can't see behind him. Obviously, he is entirely dependent on his crew telling him when to go and not to go. And I don't know whether there was a bit of a misslip there. We've seen that sort of thing in Formula One. I guess it's not surprising when these guys make so many stops in this race.
Let's look at the left side of the car. I thought he took the fuel nozzle with him, but I don't see it there. It looked like we just had the bare end of the hose. It may have just been the vent hose pulling loose from the nozzle.
It's probably lying at the side of the track somewhere.
Well, possibly.
But that's the sort of thing that can lose you this race. We saw from Randy Post when they come in for their pit stop and the vent pipe collapsed.
We'll take several different looks at that incident. Meanwhile, the 59 has now been taken over by Roberto Moreno of Brazil, another vastly experienced driver. Here's our first look. Watch the 58 car, right side of your screen.
No, they see the crewman's standing in front of him, telling him not to go. I don't know how that happened.
Saw the fuel hose stretched to its limit or beyond. Let's go for the outboard camera now and listen. Darren was looking up at the time.
Yeah, you see that the guy's
got his hand out.
Got his hand up. I don't know what Darren was thinking about there. Just again overexcited and.
If somebody was on his radio saying,
yeah,
go, go,
probably
go, go,
somebody said go, 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 exactly. And meanwhile, the guy standing in front with his arm very clearly out. Well, that could have been very unpleasant. Could have done.
Vent hose snapped away. Now, while this was going on, there was a stop down at the Ganassi pits. Chris Neville, update us, please.
Well, Bob, the 0-2 was in. Scott Dixon Cooley got out of that machine, handing it over to Dan Weldon. Now, the team was going very slow, very smooth on the pit stop, not trying to get anything wrong, but we have to remember that the fuel is going into the cars faster this year. So the fuel was done, and the tires were still not done on the car. So the team's going to have to definitely readjust what they're doing there. It's great to be slow on the tires and try to make sure everything is okay, but if it takes 35 seconds to get the fuel in, you definitely have to get everything else done.
I spoke with Hurley Haywood about that. The changes to the fuel rigs this year, allowing them a little faster fuel flow, means getting quick driver changes are more important than they have ever been. So 2005 IRL champion and Indy 500 winner Dan Weldon is now in the 02 car running fourth. We'll be back in a moment to Daytona. Back live at Daytona International Speedway, and there is Darren Law exiting the pit lane after being brought back in by the Grand Am Race Stewardship for that fuel rig violation when he drove off with the rig still attached to the car, ripping the vent hose. A stop for 60 seconds drops Darren Law and the Red Bull Brumos Porsche down to 8th place in prototype and overall. Now, in other news, we expect the 10 car, the SunTrust car, having conquered mechanical difficulties earlier in the race, to come in. And Jeff Gordon, 4-time Nextel Cup champion, will be getting in for his first stint. Chris Neville is there.
Bob, Jan Magnussen bringing the SunTrust machine to a stop here in pit lane. All of these drivers taking only one stint so far. Jeff Gordon, 4-time Nextel Cup champion, getting his chance behind the wheel. First time in Rolex racing, looking for his 13th win here at Daytona. He'd be the only guy to do it in both stock cars and sports cars, so that should definitely be something to watch. But these guys down 4 laps right now. We're still early in the race, so they should be able to make this up if that coil issue does not rear its ugly head again. Wayne Taylor was very confident that the team got it, but they're saying that coil was just overheating a bit. So the team hoping that that will not heat up again, especially since we're going to be getting into the nighttime hours here. It's going to cool off, and tomorrow should be a little bit cooler than today. So the team definitely hoping they won't see that again, and hopefully they can make up these 4 laps.
Whoops, a stall to start things off.
Well, Montoya stalled his car when he left too.
I guess all the great ones do.
These cars aren't easy.
Look how loose those belts are.
Yeah, I think you'll probably tighten those up when he gets going.
Now, he could have a problem here. See his Hans device, that black strap over his shoulder just beneath his chin. The idea is to put your belts over that. That's what allows the device to prevent excessive movement of the helmet. I don't think Jeff Gordon has his belts done up properly.
See it.
There it is. That's the Hans device made of carbon fiber. Attaches to the collar. That holds the straps of the helmet. I think Jeff Gordon is in a very distracting situation right now. He has not belted in properly.
Of course, his crew will see the same pictures that we're seeing, and they're probably going to call him in to rectify that.
See the back of the screen, the belt is running under the Hans device.
The belt's down here.
Right, and it's supposed to be over it.
Should be over the top, holding the Hans device in place. Boy, those Hans devices have been incredibly successful. There you see the belt, his seat belt is under here, and it should be over the top of the Hans device down there, holding the Hans device in place, and unfortunately he's not done that. Got all mixed up when he's getting in the car, which is easy to do, and obviously you need crew help to do that, because he can't see that with that helmet right down there. Obviously you can't see what's happening under your chin.
Along with the safer barrier collapsible wall that you find here at Daytona International Speedway and in lots of other tracks around the United States, the Hans device is probably the most significant safety device in the last few decades. There's Elio Castroneves making his first pit stop. Looks like he's going to stay in the car. Look at the marbles all over the front of that car.
That rubber dust, rolled up rubber. Boy, that's going to get in all sorts of radiators and block all sorts of vents up as the day goes on. And because it lies on the track, and if you get offline, I mean, that stuff is like ball bearings.
See the 05 pitted from 4th place. Matthew Aladeff stays in the car. That comes out behind Elio Castroneves. Now we're getting word from race control that Grand Dam officials, watching the same pictures we brought you a moment ago, see that Jeff Gordon is not properly buckled in. Jan Magnussen climbs out. This was moments ago. And they see the straps are attached to bits of black surgical tubing that yanks them out of the way to help the drivers get in and out. But he's already trapped his on the right shoulder underneath the Hans device. The drivers cannot see their laps.
It's caught under there.
Yep. So a crewman
Meanwhile, this crewman here obviously can't see that, and he hasn't looked either. Jeff pulls the strap down, and as you can see here, it's about to slip. There's the belt, and obviously there's the Hans device. Still fiddling around, and this belt is now going to go under the Hans device instead of over the top. It's very slack, it's very loose. He's obviously going to tighten it when he starts off, which is pretty common. But unfortunately, when he tightens it and pulls it down, it's going to go underneath the Hans device instead of on top.
Well, that was not an elegant pit stop. In addition to the belts problem, you see him tightening them down and securing the problem rather than the Hans device. He also put the car in gear, and then it stalled. He needed a push start, so...
They're pretty easy to stall these, because all these modern race engines have got very small diameter clutches, so they don't act as a flywheel at all. They've got multi-plate small clutches, and they are the very devil. I mean, they do. It's really easy to stall. In the old days, we needed a decent flywheel and a decent clutch, you know. Which is why when you hear so many of these cars going, they slip the clutches. It sounds dreadful, but it kind of does the job.
And just behind Jeff Gordon, that bright orange and black, number 60 is Elio Castroneves. Let's follow up a GT story now. Wolf Hensler brought his GT class leading Porsche into the pit some time ago. Let's get an update. Mike?
Yeah, Wolf Hensler's actually the current Porsche Cup champion. He did a triple stint right now to start the race. How do you feel? You pretty tired, or you got more in you?
No, I'm ready to do another triple stint. No, I mean, it's not very hot today, so it wasn't a problem for me to do a triple stint.
Now, do your teammates get kind of jealous or anxious when you're out doing all the driving, and do they kind of call you and say, hey, I want to get in, let me in there too?
No. I mean, it's a 24-hour race, and now there are 21 hour left, so I think they also will stay in the car for a long time.
So when do you think we'll see you back again behind the wheel?
Probably in the night. Now Dominic is driving. After Dominic will be Eric and Jim, and then probably it will be night when I go back in the car.
All right, well, Tafel Racing's got 2 cars in the top 2 right now and having a great run.
Wolf Hensler tied for second in class points last year, on board with Jeff Gordon. There he's fixed the belt. It's
very clever, old Jeff Gordon. I like that Jeff Gordon. He's a clever little bloke. He's obviously managed to get his belt on top of the Hans of Ice, which you can see is just there. So he's got it on top. They must have radiated in. He's fiddled around in there, so he's hurtling around here at 120 odd mile an hour. And oops!
Who's this?
That's not so good. Oh, I think that's Catherine Legg. It's the lady driver, the Champ Car driver. There's the nose. Now, did she whip it up or did it blow? Sometimes they look at that dust there.
Yep.
See all that dust blowing across the track? My God, that's going to be. Look at it.
Dust is only part of it.
Well, it's all that rolled. It's sand. I mean, it's slippery on it. The replay's coming up. We'll see what happened.
Watch the back of your screen. Here she comes. Everything's fine. Ooh, off to the inside. Driver's right.
Oh, look at all that dust she's brought on there. Miles, clouds of it.
Well, if it wasn't there before, it is now.
God, look at this car sliding on it too. It's all coming up his back wheel. Oh dear. Catherine Legg legged it into the old chicane a bit too fast. Got out of control. Spreading sand and stuff everywhere.
Channeling Queen Elizabeth again.
Oh, God, the Queen is not amused, Catherine. Dame Catherine
I think this is Catherine Legg's first experience with a roof over her head in a race car as well. And there's also the element of working with teammates. I mean, normally when drivers like Catherine Legg go to the racetrack, they have their primary car, backup car, both cars devoted just to them. But here they have to compromise with teammates on car setup, seating position, and so on.
Old Montoya just flashing his lights there. And 21 cars, 21 cars had a fairly checkered race today so far. He was flashing the lights out. We think that he's on his way in now.
It's Ray Basin.
Look at all that rubber marks, all skid marks up the front of that car with all that rubber, those pallets of rubber skidded up there. And of course that'll get on the screen and make a real mess.
There's JP. Here's the visor up, like many of the drivers we've seen. But
well, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. The trouble with all that dust, of course, that sand gets in the car in the end too, so it can get in your eyes, and it's really can lead to a lot of red eye.
The sky is clouding up quickly over Daytona International Speedway, and that will help the drivers enormously. Mike Johnson, who drove in the Pony Challenge race on Friday here at Daytona International Speedway, knows exactly what it can be like for a driver when the sun gets in your eyes late in the day. As does David Hobbs, who came to this race back in 1962 when Dan Gurney won. A.J. Foyt led the first official lap of the 3-hour Daytona Continental, and a 22-year-old stripling from England in the Jaguar.
Absolutely.
Didn't get very far in the race.
Stripling broke in 15 laps.
Chris Neville is there.
Juan Montoya finishing up his first stint in the Rolex race here. Everything going well with this car. Juan just saying that the car bit loose near the end of the stint, so it's going to be interesting. Are they going to make any type of aerodynamic change to the rear end of the car? Doesn't look like it. Oh, actually, they are pulling out a little bit bigger gurney here, so we could probably see them do this change. They're going to try and get everything done. They're still waiting on the fuel. Going to have to see, are they going to try this gurney change or no? There is a crewman at the back of the car holding one that's a little bit taller, but it doesn't look like they're going to do it.
And look at the back end of that car. Virtually all of the Daytona prototypes have added a little bit of aerodynamic flange around the rear of their cars, obviously with the permission of the Grand Am officials. Looking for a little aerodynamic efficiency and ground downforce.
That getting loose towards the end of his stint could have been like we were talking about earlier when Chris was talking about the fact they've changed the front tyres, which is making the back tyres work harder. The back tyres maybe go up and go away a bit in that hour stint. And then all that sand down the chicane, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint what's causing the looseness of the car.
Back into action comes Juan Pablo Montoya. Out there in the pit lane. Everyone relaxing as Brian France, NASCAR CEO, checking in on the action here at Daytona International Speedway. We'll take a break and return. 108 laps in the books at Daytona. Speed's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Simple, fresh American dining from start to finish. And powered by Pontiac and the 260 horsepower Solstice GXP. Back live at Daytona International Speedway, and the number 75 Krone Racing machine is in the garage. Let's get more from Chris Neville.
That's right, Bob. Colin Braun bringing the machine to pit lane into the garages, and they're changing the coil pack on this car too. Once again, a Pontiac motor, an engine that was built by CRD. So now this has happened to the 10, the 20, and now the 75. That coil pack overheating. The team, all they're doing is replacing this. Everybody's saying it's overheating, but nobody has really diagnosed, why it is and what they can do about it. All they can do is replace that part.
Saw the device being used to test the temperature of the coils. It's like a gun, essentially. A lot of tire engineers use it to canvass the surface of a racing tire or the race track to measure temperature. On board with the race leader, Juan Pablo Montoya. How about this running order? Montoya leads. Second place, Nextel Cup champion and winner of the Daytona 500 in 2006, Jimmy Johnson. Third place, former Indianapolis 500 winner and IRL IndyCar champion Dan Weldon. Darren Law, regular from the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series, is next. Then Indy 500 two-time winner Elio Castroneves, the original Spider-Man. Veteran sports car driver Sasha Maassen runs in sixth place. Fabrizio Golin from the FIA GT Series in seventh. Roberto Moreno.
Absolutely. I saw him, I spoke to him yesterday. He looks exactly the same as he did when he drove with me at Le Mans in 1984. Looks exactly the same. Trying to tell me he was 46 yesterday. He's got to be 60 today.
Gosh.
And he came second in the Italian Grand Prix that you and I reported on back in 1990.
For the Benetton team. And then he was unceremoniously booted from that ride not long after for some kid from Germany. What's his name? Michael Shoemaker, something like that.
Yeah. But Roberto Moreno, 46 years old and
great guy.
Still just
super sub.
Yesterday he was so enthusiastic about this drive.
A Carioca from Rio de Janeiro, and he has driven just about everything. Decision time, slower GT car.
That green and white BMW needs steering clear of, as Juan Pablo Montoya very wisely did.
There's something interesting going on in terms of race strategy here. Just as they did a year ago when they won this race, the Telmax Ganassi teams are triple stinting their heavy-hitting driver lineups early in the race, trying to grab control of this race. So the new members of the team, Salvador Duran in the 01 car and Mimo Rojas in the 02, are still waiting for their first stints in the car. Meanwhile, in the 10 car, there is four-time NASCAR Nextel Cup champ Jeff Gordon. Light growing low here. Gordon told us he has wanted to run this race for some time because he has been around these parts ever since well before his NASCAR career began. Here's what he told us.
I can remember racing sprint cars at Volusia County, back in the 80s, and this race is going on, and so, it's been something I've always been interested about doing, and I really have fallen in love with doing the road courses in the Cup Series, and it really just came down to timing and scheduling and trying to get with won the right team, and then having the time to test and get in the car and get laps so I could get up to speed, because I don't want to just come and be a part of it. I want to be a part of a winning organization and contribute to it.
And that he is. 9 road course victories in Nextel Cup cars. Jeff Gordon knows how to turn right, downshift, heel and toe, and do all the things you need to do well to road race. And just behind him, headlights flashing, blue Telmex nose, on race leader Juan Pablo Montoya's Lexus Riley.
Boy, that chicane there, the bus stop as they call it, it's looking very dodgy. When you go offline there, you no way people are going to be going overtaking slower cars through there. You're going to just have to wait. Jeff Gordon.
There's that bottoming we talked about.
And of course you can hear the gearbox as the car goes up and down, the rear wheels just jump a little bit, and you hear that awful gear noise as well.
There's all that clag.
Yeah, look at it.
In the chicane.
I mean, good Lord, we're only 4 hours in here yet. Can you imagine what it's going to be like this time tomorrow? Well, not this time tomorrow. This time tomorrow we'll all be gone home. But as the night wears on, it's going to be bad.
And if it rains, look out, Nelly. Montoya sweeping through the field. Oh, look out, look out. Oh, the 74. That is the race leader in the GT class, Dominic Farnbacher, who took off after Wolf Hensler did a stint to open his campaign. A triple stint, I should say.
Yeah, here comes Juan Pablo, closing in big time on Jeff Gordon, Jeff Gordon is behind another prototype car.
That's the 74 Ranch car, Resort car that Catherine Legg was in.
She's currently lying down in 22nd.
Catherine Legg still driving that car. One of 3 women drivers in the field. Milka Duno and Valerie Limoges are the other 2.
Juan Pablo getting a big draft here off that gaggle of cars in front. That's something he's going to have to get used to. 3 weeks' time, he's going to be on 3. Oh, here we go. Oh, my goodness me. Look at this through the tri-oval.
Jeez, look at the traffic. Oh, my goodness.
No, I'm lost. That was not the driver. That's coming to the chicane, but it's what he's going to have to get used to. Big bunches of cars.
While the 75 has emerged from the garages and now is on the pit road. Chrome Racing Pontiac Riley.
Dusk falling in. You can see the lights glinting off the cars now as the floodlights come on all around the circuit.
Legg, Gordon, Montoya. Oh.
Gordon having a thinking about there.
Catherine putting in a good drive here.
Yeah.
Holding off these 2 veteran champions. This has to be a great moment for her. As this battle continues, let's hear from another Indy 500 champion with Chris Neville.
Buddy, this is your 3rd year at the Rolex event. Last year you had a solid top 10 finish. This year, your 1st year with the Brumos boys. You got to be excited about what's going on with the car right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really good in practice and also in testing. And I ran with them in Utah, and we had a really strong run there. So this really excited me with the Red Bull Brumos team, and we've been running really good all day. We had that little mishap on the last pit stop, but I think we'll be able to recover. It's plenty early right now. We just need to stay nice and consistent and just slowly work our way back to the front.
Darren, say anything about that last pit stop? Was it miscommunication or what happened?
I'm not really sure. I mean, it's just, obviously we just made an error as a group, so we'll recover as a group and get ourselves back up in the front here quick.
Now looking to 2007, what are your plans?
I'll definitely be driving an open wheel car, so there'll be an announcement here soon.
I'll be very excited to hear where Buddy Rice ends up this year.
Oddly enough, that's exactly what Buddy Rice told me back at the beginning of the month when he was here for the pre-Rolex 24 test. 2004 Indy 500 winner Buddy Rice.
Juan Pablo trying to set up Catherine Legg here to get by going into turn 1. There he goes.
And Gordon will follow him through. Catherine Legg goes a lap down to the race leader. Juan Pablo Montoya has completed 115 laps. You can Ganassi cars basically dominated the laps led category in this race a year ago. Looks like they're picking up right where they left off. Well, more traffic ahead for Montoya, flashing the headlights. GT car slips aside, but that's a Daytona prototype up ahead.
To the West Horseshoe. That's the number 7 car.
It's the 7 car, the Pontiac Riley of Chris Festa, Thomas Enge, Christian Montanari, Razer Yazakawa from California, and Chris Zickers.
Chris Zickers, I think, is behind the wheel at the moment.
The light is beginning to turn to shadow and soon to darkness here at Daytona International Speedway as we continue with part of our 15 hours of live coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. I'm Bob Varsha with David Hobbs. Chris Neville and Mike Johnson are in the pit lane, taking you one more hour into the gathering darkness here at Daytona before we step away for a couple of hours. Then at 8 o'clock Eastern time, join Lee Diffie, Dorsey Schrader, Calvin Fish, and Brian Till for 2 more hours of live coverage of this great race. Then we'll bid you adieu for the evening, rejoin you at 6 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow, Sunday morning, here on Speed, to take you all the way through to the finish of the 45th Rolex 24 at Daytona. Here you see the numbers on the race thus far. Chip Ganassi's team's dominating once again this year. You're on board with Juan Pablo Montoya, closing up rapidly on one of the GT class Corvettes.
You know, 115 laps and we have not had a caution flag yet. You know, one hates to jinx it, but that is absolutely extraordinary.
By this time last year, we had 3 or 4 of them.
I know, and your words, Bob, there, where you were talking about the shadows falling and going to darkness, following dusk, I thought was so insightful somehow.
Well, you just sense some of these things.
I'd never thought of darkness following the day. So it's just, the way you put it was terrific.
Welcome back to the Sarcasm Channel, covering one of the world's great sports car classics. Bob Varsha alongside Oscar
Juan
Levant.
Pablo Montoya here. Jimmy Johnson is lurking, only just 19 seconds behind him, and Dan Weldon is just a couple of seconds behind Jimmy Johnson. So there's a lot of action going on this racetrack.
Now here's the number 6 back in the pit lane after all of those problems. Chris Neville.
Well, more problems for the 6, Bob. It looks like they're going to have to push it back to the garage. That alternator belt came off again. So this issue that we saw with the Lexus last year, once again happening this year. So these guys pushing this car back. Hopefully they can get it back out on track, and Paul Tracy's going to get behind the wheel.
Oh, my.
Well, Tracy going to end up here with a similar history at Daytona to a certain commentator in the booth.
That's right. Lots of attempts. No successes to speak of. They are out of the top 50. There's a good look at the Roubaix Tuesday car. Patrick Long, the only American Porsche factory driver behind the wheel, will be back to the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Forza Motorsport Showdown premieres February 21st at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on Speed. What began as a video game comes to life as amateur drivers push their skills and their cars to the max. Find out who's got the right stuff to be a Forza champion. Forza Motorsport Showdown premieres February 21st on Speed. Welcome back on board the number 18. Flashing down the infield through the kink.
This is a Porsche Fab car. As you can see, sponsored by XM Radio, driven by Uwe Alsen, the top German driver, Robert Renauer, Terry Borcello, who's won many championships, and Gaston Mazzacani from Argentina. They're a little bit off the pace, unfortunately, for them.
Mazzacani now behind the wheel. One of approximately 10 drivers, I believe it's 10 drivers with Formula One experience in this year's Rolex, and that has to be some kind of a record.
Absolutely.
There is the Argentine driver. Going up to terminal velocity there on the run down the super stretch. Before getting hard on the brakes and downshifting for the chicane.
Boy, look at this dug up on the right there. 2 or 3 people have durfed off there and dug all that sand and shoveled it onto the racetrack. Obviously it gets blown off over time until somebody else does it again.
Is that the 75 up high on the banking after a long stretch in the garage? Colin Braun currently shown 21st overall and in the prototype class. The problem appears to be with the coils on these Pontiac engines gathering too much heat. Now, we did not mean to suggest that just because all the cars have gone to a common Bosch ECU or engine control unit this year that it was any fault of that ECU. There you see them testing the various coil pieces for temperature. Mike Johnson can add on this problem.
Yeah, 2 years ago when I ran that Chrome team, we had the same problem. We had the Pontiac engine, the CRD motors, and what we did is we actually pulled air from the brake ducts from the side and made a bracket that went over all the tops of the coils. We had that problem 2 years ago. Now maybe when the Krone Racing team went to a Ford and back to Pontiac, looks like they left those hoses and those cooling ducts back off the car. And if the other teams did that as well, that could be some of the problems. So some of the teams did know that these do overheat and maybe just didn't get enough cold air to them.
Well, Ed, those coils are working overtime on these cars, and obviously it's one of those things that gets hot, and of course it gets incredibly hot under the hood of these cars, around that engine. A tremendous amount of heat generated by these motors, and you've got to have everything's got to be cooled.
We move to the number 61 AIM Motorsports car. David Empringham, veteran Canadian driver, a two-time champion of what was once the Toyota Atlantic Championship, now Champ Car Atlantics. He's had a pretty successful weekend thus far. Predominantly it's Canadian sponsored car, being shared by Empringham, Mark Wilkins, and the Frizzell brothers, Brian and Bert, sons of former Sebring 12-hour sports car winner Brad Frizzell,
who was here all weekend, obviously pumping up his kids and looking around for opportunities for them. There certainly are a couple of bright kids, and Dad is just so keen to see them do well.
Chris Neville.
Well, Bob, the AIM Motorsports team very happy about what's going on in this race. Early on, they did have a difficult time getting the car to the grid. It would not start up, so they had to start at the back of the pack. They've been charging forward ever since, but right now the team, a young team, very excited about their prospects. Down here now with Max Angelelli. Max, problems with the 10 car early on. It's that coil situation that we've been talking about all afternoon. Everything okay with the 10 car now?
Yes, our car is fine now. We changed the coils, so far so good. We'll see later.
Is this a situation where the team has done anything at this point in time to try and cool those coils off, or did you just change the coil?
We just replaced the coil. It's the same system, nothing different, just the coil.
Well, it doesn't sound like they've done anything to try and cool those coils off. Obviously, the ambient temperature has cooled down quite a bit from the beginning of the race. I'd say at least 10 degrees, and will continue to get cooler from here on. So hopefully these teams will not have to deal with that situation anymore.
If ambient temperature alone can be enough to bring that temperature down into the range those coils need to function properly. You're watching Jeff Gordon.
But bumpy there at the back as he goes over those rumble strips at the entry and the exit of the first part of the bus stop there on the back straight.
Currently shown in 14th place. You're watching one of the best in the business, so why don't we take this opportunity to go on board with the four-time Nextel Cup champion. Watch and listen as he does a lap at Daytona. thumping Pontiac engine in the hands of one of the best there is in our times. Jeff Gordon continues on his way with work to do, shown 14th overall and in the prototype class at the 45th Rolex 24 at Daytona, led by Juan Pablo Montoya. The stars have come out here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Everyone seeking that ultimate prize in sports car racing, the Rolex Daytona chronograph on their wrist when the sun goes down on Sunday night. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. Moments ago, our GT class leader, the Porsche GT3 Cup number 74 in the hands of Dominic Farnbacher, had a bit of a moment, you might say. Back in the chicane, getting a little wide to let traffic underneath.
Oh, ran over somebody else's bodywork there, which may not have done it much good. There is no way. This is a two-lane street now. This down at the bus stop there.
That will allow the second and third place cars in class. Richard Westbrook, first Englishman to win the Porsche Super Cup Championship in the number 81 car. And Lee Keen, a veteran of the Rolex 24 in yet another Porsche. Closing up. You see Dominic Farnbacher, German driver. His family team has 4 cars entered. The Farnbacher-Lowell's team in this race, but he drives for another team. Now let's go to Chris Neville, standing by with one of the superpowers in American motorsports.
Chip, both cars running very well right now. You finally broke through and got the win here last year with the 0-2. What did the team learn from that win to come back this year?
Well, Chris, you need to just have a clean day and a clean night, and you need a hell of a lot of lady luck, I can tell you. I mean, it's this is way early in the race. You can see that a lot of guys have had problems, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed, just trying to run lap after lap.
This year you brought 3 rookies to this race. What did the team do to prepare those 3 for the event?
Well, we tried to pair them with guys that knew what they were doing, and we think we're okay in that department. I mean, Scott's done a great job with Juan and with Salvador, and with Dan and Scott in the other car. They've helped Memo, quite a bit in testing. And we've had meetings every day on every possible subject, and let's see what the weather does here tonight, and hope we're around in the morning.
Are you feeling good right now?
Yeah. It doesn't matter how. If you feel good or bad right now, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, this team running very strong right now. Not only do they want to do well at this event, but they want to make sure that 0-1 goes through and wins the championship this year.
Chip Ganassi has it going on in NASCAR, IndyCar, and here in the Grand American Rolex Sports Car Series. There's his man, Juan Pablo Montoya, leading the race. The other car 2 places back at 3rd place in the hands of Dan Weldon.
He's leading the race. He's pulling away slightly from Jimmy Johnson, who's now 20 seconds behind him. And Jimmy Johnson is pulling away from that 0-2 car of Dan Weldon. There's an 8-second gap between Johnson and Weldon now. It was only a couple of seconds about 8 laps ago. So Weldon not quite up to the pace of Johnson or Juan Pablo in the 0-1 car. Look at that traffic going.
Another note on Chip Ganassi. Not only is he a great car owner, he was also a pretty fine driver. Drove at the Indianapolis 500 and Indy cars, drove a sports car here. A massive and hairy-chested, turbocharged March Buick, as I recall.
That was a hairy-chested muscle car, that March Buick. That was an animal, that thing.
I asked him how it went. He said, well, it would go really fast in a straight line. That's right.
Now that 23 car, the white car there, that's the Ruby Tuesday car, has been leading Juan Pablo Montoya. Obviously it's a long way behind, but still in all, he's patching along, turning some good laps.
Here comes Montoya. If they can win again, Telmex Chip Ganassi cars, it'll be the first back-to-back victories for a single car owner since the late Al Holbert. And the Holbert Racing Team did it in 1986 and 1987. And with that, let's have a look at this Rolex moment in time. In that race, the number 16 Porsche 962 of Rob Dyson's team took the early lead. Attrition very high. Notice the track back when these lights weren't in place. Al Holbert's team slowed with throttle problems. At 5 a.m., A.J. Foyt's team took the lead until a lengthy late race pit stop. The Holbert team made up an 8-lap deficit to win. There is Al Unser Jr., Derek Bell, and of course, Al Holbert himself, who went on to win the next year before he lost his life in a tragic plane crash in 1988. Just as he was about to bring the great Porsche name to IndyCar racing. Flashing headlights. Is that the 16? The Dyson car? Yeah. That's the Thetford Norcold car, the Porsche Crawford. Rob Dyson has been coming to the Rolex for many, many years, as you just saw in that moment in time. Here in 1986 with Porsche, back with Porsche once again. Elio Castroneves has completed his first stint in the race. Let's go down to Chris Neville.
Well, Bob, the 60 machine definitely having a good day, running in top 10 right now. Sam Hornish behind the wheel. Elio, you just got out a little while ago, your first taste of the Rolex 24. What are your impressions?
Oh, man, let me tell you, it was really hard. There's really a lot of things around. I mean, slow cars, fast car, debris, you know, it's kind of interesting because on the practice, there's not many things going on, but right now it's the real action, and obviously the car is not the same that you used to, so, but it was good. At least we keep the pace, trying to make non-mistakes, so far we did okay. In the end, the car started pushing. I thought we have flat tire. I keep asking them, what's going on, They pit, and then better be safe than sorry.
Now, everybody in the U.S. knows you from open-wheel racing, but last year you also ran back down at Interlagos, the 1,000, in an Aston Martin with Nelson Piquet Jr. and Sr. You guys won the race. How does this event compare?
Oh, my goodness. It's a totally different race, obviously. You're thinking about 10 hours versus 24 hours. And obviously, you just have to keep the pace consistent. And that's what I was trying to do, what I learned there. But the cars are different, too. Obviously, the Aston Martin with the carbon brakes were extremely awesome. You brake, your head was going forward, so this is a little bit different. The car keeps moving around, so you have to be really careful, especially on the high-speed turns. But let me tell you, this is awesome. I can't sleep. I don't know. At one point, my visor was closed. I'm like, I can't see. It's getting dark. Open the visor because he's so excited. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a hard time falling asleep here, guys.
Take your sunglasses off, you dork. Well, I tell you what, where we broke away there to look at that chicane, the incredible mess of traffic going there, which obviously accentuated what Elio was saying there about the different speed of the traffic, just all over each other everywhere, and the track getting dirtier and dirtier, that rubber getting rolled up more and more than usual, because with no traction control, these guys are sliding around, and the more they slide, the more they wear, and the more rubber gets on the track. So, boy, this is... and it's still amazing. Here we are, lap 129, and we still haven't had a caution. I'm looking for one.
Keep bringing that up.
I know, yes, I know.
Had a good look at Elio Castroneves' teammate at Team Penske, Sam Hornish Jr. IndyCar champion, Indy 500 champion, and that amazing run to the finish with Marco Andretti, who went on to be named Rookie of the Year. Now the two teammates are running together in the same car, and that really changes the whole dynamic of the team. Take his word for it.
Probably this is one of the first time I'm going to cheer for Sam. You know, like, keep going, buddy. You're doing perfect, you know. So, and I suppose you would do the same.
Well, I think that, you know, there's still going to be a little bit of competition between us, you know, as far as, you know, who's run better lap times or whatever. But you know, the way I look at it is, you know, we're here to win as a team, and you know, that's the same way we do it everywhere we go. And you know, we push each other pretty hard, and we race each other probably harder than anybody else out on the track. But you know, that's because we both got a lot of respect for the other guy, and we've both been able to be fairly successful in what we're doing.
Fairly successful. Yeah, I suppose you could say they would have been fairly successful.
I was interested to hear from Elio Castroneves earlier in the weekend that part of the reason that he and Sam didn't come here to race with other teams was because they expected that Roger Penske himself would bring a team here to the Rolex 24. Wouldn't that be something? We'll take a break. The action continues. More pit action coming from Daytona International Speedway on the 45th Rolex 24. Tonight's Speed brings you unprecedented coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The superstars from NASCAR, sports cars, open wheel racing are here to put their racing skills to the test against each other. Live coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona continues tonight at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, only on Speed. Welcome back, and here is another of the great stories of this year's Rolex. Car number 67, 49th place from the Racers Group. Kevin Buckler's operation out of California is being driven by 15-year-old California teenager Austin Harris right now. A very talented youngster making a big step up in his Rolex debut. All a part of the massive effort to bring so many cars to this race by Kevin Buckler. Earlier in the weekend, we asked him what it's all about.
This Rolex 24 ends up for me personally being sort of the management exercise from hell. It's a challenge, and I love it, and I love coming down here, but as soon as we hit the ground for the race, we'll probably have about 100 personnel working for us this weekend. There'll be 20 drivers in the 5 cars, 21 if you include me. There'll be another 8 with the Coney Challenge cars. Engineering, technical people, support staff, the number of tires and wheels and just everything, motorhomes, rental cars. I mean, it's pretty staggering. And once the thing is over, you breathe a sigh of relief. And it's funny because you swear at the end of the day on Sunday, you'll never do it again. And then Monday morning, you start planning.
Of course, you could make life a bit easier by not bringing quite so many cars.
And he also had cars in the Coney Challenge. It is the Racers Group Army. Let's get down and hear from Kevin right now with Mike Johnson.
Kevin, hey, you know, last year I was with you behind the wall, but this year I think I'm a lot more comfortable on this side because I think we only had a few cars last year. Now you're what, running 9 cars, 5 in this race?
Yeah, we have 5 in this race right now. The guys are all still in there doing a good job. Had a couple of small issues, no doubt, but everything's sort of settling in right now. I feel like everyone's sort of coming into their own. Pretty proud of everybody. It's a mammoth effort for us.
Now, the headlight issue on the 66 car, what happened with that? Trying to add some additional brake cooling up there? What were you doing?
I was thinking I would probably tell you I was looking for a little extra cooling, but I don't think I can get away with that with you. I don't know. Maybe it was the really good brakes we had. Just popped them right out.
All right, now let's talk about this other 16-year-old. You brought a bunch of 16-year-olds 2 years ago. Now you've got another one, Austin Harris. How's he doing?
Austin's great. We tested him up in Miller. He was 15 and a half years old. Did an awesome job. Just turned 16 last month. I mean, I can't say enough. So mature, so calm, so collected. I have high hopes for this kid.
Well, Kevin, you got so many fans out here, but I think a lot of people want to see when are you going to get in the car because we haven't seen you behind the wheel in a few years.
Yeah, I got the junk job this year. I told him I'd help out. I should have never put my hand up. I think I'm driving from 2 to 5 a.m. He said, I'll help. We'll see how it goes. Up. It's not raining too bad.
Well, maybe if you're lucky, like a total downpour will come down at about 2:01. So you get out there maybe with some slick tires and, you know, try to fight it out from there.
We have some really good competition here, as usual, this year. So I can tell you this is going to be a real tough run. Obviously, it's a sprint race. Look how fast everybody's running. We have a good car, and I bet we have a good car in the rain.
All right, well, we'll see you at about 5 o'clock when we come back on Speed.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you.
Kevin Buckler, one of my favorite people in the sport. He has another great story, also with the TRG team. Jim Lowe from Longport, New Jersey, is actually Dr. Jim Lowe, New York metropolitan area neurosurgeon. Like so many others here at the Rolex 24, he is living the dream. He has worked hard, improved his driving skills. Looks like he's headed for a pit stop. This is the number 64 car. Currently shown 31st as he pits and 7th in GT, pending the results of the pit stop. Interesting guy. Another guy who began his racing career later on in life. He had the means and the time. Mike Johnson is there for the stop.
All right, Jim Lowe brought the car in. He's had a great run. Now, this is actually the lead car of all the TRG cars right now. I think the team expected the 66 to be up front, and they have an all-star lineup in here. Jim Pace, who has won this race overall and was very fast last year with Jim Lowe, now stepping into the car, 4 new Hoosier tires, a new set of new load of fuel, and you know, these guys are just having a solid run. They got Ralph Kellner's in the car, Jonas Van Overbeek, and they're really looking forward for a great finish.
That is a good lineup. And you notice the wheel change there, not the center nut, the one nut used to take off most racing wheels. Under the Grand Am rules, these cars have to use the 5-lug wheels.
And they tried to be like NASCAR there and stick the lugs to the wheel. And as you can see there, at least two of them fell out, and the mechanic who was doing the wheel change had to find them and put them back on.
Now this is one of a dozen Porsches built specifically to these rules. Previously, if you wanted a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, you had to modify a car to the Grand Am rules. But there's a dozen built specifically by the Porsche factory for Grand Am competition with 3 teams. Down in the 91 pits.
Jimmy Johnson just bringing the Lowe's machine to pit lane, handing it over to Ryan Hunter-Reay. Everything going well with this car. Actually, looking at it, there's actually quite a few tire marks on the car, so there's definitely some pushing and shoving going out on this racetrack. Johnson having just a stellar run here in his first stint. Second time here at the Rolex 24. The car currently in second. They're doing a little bit of work on the rear tailpipes here. There's a little bit of a bend to them, so the team trying to take their time here since the car is in pit lane. All the other service is done, but it looks like one of the tailpipes is a little bit loose on the car. May have been some of the contact that we can see. There's really donuts all down the side of this car, so Johnson was definitely doing some pushing and shoving out on the racetrack.
You see that crewman at the front fender, having learned from the experience over there in the Brumos pit, getting right down there in the windshield. Now, whoa, this is the 64, the Jim Lowe car, smoking out the back, having just made that stop.
Yeah, it looked like just a sort of big puff of smoke.
Jim Pace now behind the wheels.
Let's hope it's not a permanent. Oh, that's more than the puff of smoke.
Jim Pace, a former winner of this event. Mike Johnson, what's going on?
Yeah, well, what they were doing during that pit stop is they added some oil to the back, and they were there for an extra long time, and they didn't unplug the oil line until the very end. I think a little oil might have leaked out and gotten on the headers, or they overfilled it, but I imagine it's not a major problem, probably just some overflow from the oil they added.
Well, assuming it's not getting to the racetrack in liquid form. Lowe keeping it down. Oh, now what's this with the 91? Is that radiator overflow?
Well, of course, they left it up on that stand there and kept the engine running probably a little bit too long.
That's exactly right, David. Ryan just shut the car down. The car was running for quite a while with no air going through it, so the motor was starting to heat up. He just shut that down, but you can see the radiator is spitting some water out the side of the car as the team is still trying to fix the exhaust system on the car. It's that right bank on the rear of the car that is loose, so the team really taking their time. They'd rather address the issue now. They're still going to have, three-fourths of this race to try and make up that time, so it's all about getting the car fixed right.
Nothing like trying to remove probably the hottest single part of the car.
And of course, by letting it overheat like that and start pumping that water out, if it pumps too much out, now they're going to be in trouble with needing to top it up again, which of course is not easy to do when it's hot.
Oh no, down the pit lane a bit further, the 75 has the engine cover off again. Chris Neville.
That's right, Bob. They're taking a look at the computer system on that car. They're still trying to diagnose what has been going on with the coils. Checked in with both the 75 and the 10 to talk further about that issue, asking about if they've done any type of cooling, and they said they have been running ducts all year long, or all season last year and today. It's just for some reason the temperatures are higher than what they've seen for the past 2 years. So the ducts that they have had on that car are still there, and they have started putting more air ducts on the car. They haven't started addressing the issue of maybe trying to change the fuel mixture at all to see if they can bring down engine temp. But other than that, they're just trying to still diagnose what is going on with these coils from these Pontiac CRD motors.
All right, thanks very much. We're on board with Jim Pace in the 64 J-Lo Racing Porsche. Still smoking a bit out the back. He's dropped back to 33rd in the overall.
There's a 91 car underway, and of course Dan Weldon is over by it. There's a 60 car.
Now Sam Hornish Jr. has not been in the car that long. A lot of work going on to the left front wheel. This should be an unscheduled stop. You see his teammates. Send Sam on his way again. Let's follow Sam Hornish into the pits and see if we can see what happens. This is on the backstretch, headed for the chicane. Ooh, too hot on entry.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, that'll lead to a pit stop.
Yeah, that doesn't do that front splitter any good at all. It fills it full of sand.
You heard the lockup. See if he bottoms. Nope. Well, one way or another, on his way back out. Jimmy Johnson has climbed from his car. Chris Neville is with him.
Jimmy, what a great run in the Lowe's machine. You came in second place. You've got to be excited. You skipped the event last year, but you really haven't missed a beat.
The car drives really nice. I got to thank Bill Riley and all these guys for working so hard on the car, and Mark Gustins for setting it up. It's a lot of fun out there. The car really handles well, and the experience I had 2 years ago I think paid off, plus the preseason testing. But unfortunately, we had a bracket or something to break for the exhaust. Lost a little time, but as we all know, there's still a lot of race left.
Now, quite a few donuts down the side of the car. What's going out on the racetrack?
There was a couple tight squeezes coming into some of the hairpins with the GTs. I think I was in the middle of a couple of those.
Now, you said at the beginning of the show your wrist was feeling good. You just did a long stint. How's it feeling after that stint?
The wrist feels good. I'm kind of surprised how hot it is inside these cars. I thought our Cup cars were hot, but these are definitely hotter than our Cup cars.
Well, Jimmy Johnson's here to try and work on his road racing craft so he's better in the Nextel Cup. Obviously, this man knows what he's doing.
As does this man, his NASCAR Nextel Cup teammate and co-car owner, Jeff Gordon, is double stinting. He heads back out. We'll take a break and return with more live in our 5th hour of the Rolex 24 here at Daytona. More drama live from Daytona International Speedway. You see the wrecker pulling up in front of the number 60 Lexus Riley, driven by Indy 500 champion Sam Hornish Jr., who's having more problems after taking the car off in the chicane once. He is now parked in the chicane after a long limp down the super stretch here at Daytona. Chris Neville?
Bob, down here with Mike Shank. Mike, what's going on with Sam and the number 60 right now?
We lost something in the drive line. I'm not sure. It's not a great start to our day here, that's for sure.
Sam had the car off the racetrack a couple times. Is that something that could have brought the problem about?
He didn't report. He went off about 2 laps before that, brought the car in and got rid of that little grass deal. Went back out. He said he lost drive going onto the front car on the back straight.
Well, looks like gearbox problems here for Mike Shank Racing.
Or maybe it's another one of those drive shafts.
Sam Hornish Jr. used to race Atlantics for Mike Shank. According to Mike, they've been working ever since to make this deal happen at the Rolex 24. Just when he got his old driver back in the car to go for 24 hours, that happens. He'll be towed back to the pits. They'll get a chance to look it over, and bouncing through the high banks, Jeff Gordon moments ago made a pit stop on the way out, made a mistake that is actually fairly common here.
It's very, very easy to do here. The pit lane is narrow and it's tight.
Watch this.
This is what happened. Slide, the old front wheel slides, and curb. Look at that, broke the front bodywork. You can see the bodywork flapping there.
Now let's do it from on board and listen to the sound in the cockpit.
Too much welly there, Jeffrey. Too much welly. You can see the front bodywork lift up real badly on that first.
Real time.
See the bodywork there is already up. Too fast, but there you see the bodywork up. So.
Welly would be Wellington, as in boot on the gas pedal. Now the 20 is back in. The whole driver's side is up. I thought the door was missing. Saw the driver fumbling away in there. They've had a litany of mechanical and electrical woes. We saw Butch Leitzinger standing forlornly in the garage watching the mechanics work on the Jackson Hewitt subway car. Oil flag is out. That's right where Jeff Gordon went in. I wonder if he had an assist.
He could have done, yeah. As you can see, it's pretty narrow there, and it's a very tight left-hand turn.
Well, it's right where the driver comes off the 45-mile-an-hour mandatory pit lane speed.
And obviously the temptation is to accelerate.
Exactly. That gaggle of cars is the number 6 that ran so strongly early on before a long stint in the garage. Up on the banking with, what do you know, a healthy race car. Juan Pablo Montoya in the 01 Lexus Riley now has teammate Dan Weldon in the 02 behind him. Running 1-2 for Telmex, Chip Ganassi racing with Felix Sabates. Through the chicane. Now let's go back to the 60 and Sam Hornish's problems. There you see being towed back to the garage where the crew will try to make repairs. We'll take you back to the onboard camera in that car and see if we can hear when Sam Hornish Jr. suffered that driveline problem. Sounds like you can't change gears. Engine sounds fine.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that sounds like the main shaft between the engine and the gearbox. If the engine still revs like that, ooh, not good.
I'll have to wait till the crew gets it back and has a look. And that is a long ride from where he was parked back there in the chicane. Here's the 23 Ruby Tuesday car. Driver change. Patrick Long gets out. Car currently shown in 19th place after that long stop early on to replace an alternator.
Patrick Long was doing some good laps because he was just in front of Juan Pablo Montoya and stayed there. So he was lapping, as we know, at the same speed as the leaders, but of course quite a long way down.
Romain Dumas will take over that car. Let's go to Chris Neville in the Cheever pits.
Well, the 39 machine is in, running second right now, or I'm sorry, it looks like about fourth right now up on the board. Looks like Christian Fittipaldi getting in. It's kind of difficult to see in the cars right now with the lights on down here. But everything going well for this team. No serious problems. They had such a strong run last year before that engine expired. So Cheever Racing trying to come back here and maybe get their first Rolex 24.
Eddie Cheever really seems to have taken a shine to the Rolex 24. He had done a lot of sports car racing. In fact, Eddie Cheever was the coming man at BMW back in your day, David.
He was. He was in the BMW Junior team. He and I shared a room once at a hotel in St. Moritz when we were put through the grueling campaign of getting fit for the upcoming season. And he was 19, I was 39, and he had almost raced as long as I had because he started go-kart racing when he was just a little kid.
There's a new book on the market about the life of...
Look at this lot here. That looks exciting, doesn't it? Ouch.
Saw some great pictures of a young Eddie Cheever in his days racing karts with one of his longtime friends, the late Elio DeAngelis.
Sandwiched there between a couple of GT cars, but as he's bringing the tyres up to temperature, he gets 72.